Today we're covering a manhwa called I Stole the Male Lead's First Night. Please like and subscribe. It helps a lot. During a very fine morning, a girl wakes up to someone dressed as a maid calling out to her. However, she's very confused. The bed she's lying on is much softer than she remembers. The room she's in looks very fancy. This isn't her apartment in which she slept the previous night. Startled by the apparent maid's shout, the girl sits up. She believes she must be in a dream, but why is it so real? The maid tells her it's time to get ready for a girl named Etoile's birthday, and she's struck because the name seems familiar. It's just like the name of the female lead in a novel she used to read. She asks the maid some more about this girl, and her appearance and backstory of being an orphan who was adopted by a caring baron matches the details in the story perfectly. This is how the girl confirms it. She is now inside a novel called The Flower of Elorel, in which the female lead Etoile gets together with the obsessive yet handsome Duke after enduring some hardships from the jealous villainess. However, the question remains, who is she? The maid had called her Ripley, but who even is that? She's read the novel countless times and never read that name even once. She must be an extra, some minor side character who wasn't even worth mentioning. Normally this might upset people, but it appears to be that this side character, Ripley, is loaded. And when I say loaded, I mean loaded. Indeed, Ripley is the daughter of a count, and she has a position that's even higher than that of the female lead. The girl, who we'll call Ripley from now on, does not intend to waste this opportunity and asks for a very abundant and fancy breakfast, which she eats while wearing an excessive amount of jewelry. It doesn't look well on her because of how much she's wearing, but she's really happy with them and with her new life. So you go, girl. Whatever floats your boat. Luckily, she does take some of the jewelry off for Etoile's birthday party at the Baron's house that night. Ripley is very happy with all of the snacks and drinks available. She has concluded that she's currently at the beginning of the novel, so it'll take about a year for the whole plot to take place. Her plan is to live her best extravagant life for a year, and then after the novel ends to be returned to her original world. She has no proof that that's what will happen, but it's what she guesses will take place. To be honest, she's not worried at all. Let's hope it all works out. While she's happy thinking about her masterful plan, Etoile, the female lead, finally appears. She calls out to Ripley and politely thanks her for attending the ball, even though they're not really friends and don't really know each other. Ripley does not recognize her at first, but when she does, her face turns into that of a fangirl. After all, she's read the novel countless times. She's a total Etoile stan. When Etoile leaves, Ripley stops her, to which the female lead is confused. Ripley wants to tell her many things, like how to avoid the villainess and how to reach her happiness without all the suffering. But in the end, she can't really say anything. After all, she's just an extra, and her advice would probably distort the story, and she can't have that. Etoile and the male lead of the novel are supposed to meet at this ball, but Ripley can't really locate him since his description is that he's blonde and basically everyone at the ball is blonde. She does not lose any sleep on it though, and resolves to have fun gulping down delicious drinks all night long. However, it's suddenly the next morning and Ripley is slowly opening her eyes. But what lays in front of her is not what she was expecting at all. Or should I say, who lays in front of her? An absolutely gorgeous man with a chiseled torso that is perfectly sculpted stares at her with a charming smile. He looks so handsome. Suspiciously handsome. Like male lead of a novel kind of handsome. But there's no way, right? He finally talks, saying, "What are you staring at so intently? It's just the body you touched to your heart's content last night." Ripley, what have you done? It turns out, she doesn't even know. Nervously sweating, Ripley confirms the hunch we all had upon seeing such a splendid specimen of a man. This man is the Duke of the Empire, and male lead of the novel Ripley is in. Zoronis de Inglid, the man who was supposed to meet his fated partner Etoile last night at the ball, and the man who is currently in bed with her. Okay, Ripley, so you didn't want to ruin the flow of the story by giving advice to Etoile about some bullying from the villainess, but you woke up in the bed of the male lead she was supposed to fall in love with? This is why drinking is bad, kids. Ripley becomes desperate as she tries to find a way to explain that they should pretend this never happened, but she can't really say that he's actually from a novel and his destined partner is someone else. Meanwhile, Zeronis looks at Ripley quizzically and asks what she's thinking about with a charming smile. Ripley plays it off saying it's nothing because she definitely can't say the truth. Not only because he'll think she's mad, but because she knows the truth behind Zeronis. The Duke is actually an extremely handsome psycho. Zeronis has disliked people ever since he was young, so he has no compassion or consideration for anybody. Like, none. If his food ever had a single thing off, he fired the cook. If his barber cut him by accident while shaving him, he would not be able to hold another pair of scissors ever again. And he's no different with women, since he sent a girl who was a bit clingy with him to an abbey to live in abstinence, and in the novel he had the villainess dismembered at the end. He has the power to destroy a noble family with a mere flick of his finger. How can Ripley escape the situation? Well, for starters, she plans to just pass it off as a one-time romantical encounter between a man and a woman. An incident between adults, which they can both walk away from. But Zeronis practically reads her mind and prevents her from even suggesting it, saying that if she were to even think like that, her head would have to be crushed. Yikes. Zeronis then goes on to say that it was his first night, and after confirming it was Ripley's too, he says that since they both gifted their first nights to each other, they should take responsibility. Ripley cannot argue with the words of this psychopath with a diabolically irresistible smile, and so leaves in a carriage while scolding herself, saying she has gone insane for doing what she did last night with the male lead. She can't even think of a solution since Zeronis was so clear in the fact that he would not let it be just a one-night stand. But how did it even happen? Weren't the female and male leads supposed to meet at the ball? Ripley tries to recall what happened, but she can't recall anything after taking that drink. Again, kids, drinking is bad. Desperate over the fact that she somehow completely ruined the plot of the story and might have to stay trapped in the book forever, she resolves to go to Etoile's place to get to the bottom of it. Etoile receives her with a smile, and while chatting, Ripley comes to kind of find out what happened. It seems she got really drunk and entertained the whole party by juggling tangerines. And then she prepared a drink she called a bomb cocktail, which people literally got in a line for. Apparently, even the Duke. She also learns that Etoile and the Duke hadn't even spoken, and that her concept of him is pretty bad, with very exaggerated rumors in which he pulled the cook's teeth out if he didn't like a dish or cut the barber's head if he nicked him. Etoile also heard that because of his lack of interest in women, there's a rumor that there's a problem with him in that area. Ripley comments that the situation is quite the contrary, without even thinking, but Etoile questions her about how she knows. Extremely flustered, Ripley lies, saying she has also heard a rumor about it and tries to reassure Etoile, saying he has no issues whatsoever in that department. Etoile is very amusedly confused why she is trying to reassure her about a man she doesn't even know. But of course Ripley can't say that he's supposed to be her destined partner. She can, however, start complimenting everything about him and elaborate on how kind and thoughtful he is, even to staff. Once more attributing her knowledge of this to rumors, Etoile seems charmed by the fact that while everyone says bad things of the Duke, Ripley only focuses on the good rumors she hears. Because of this, she wants to befriend her. However, Ripley kind of refuses at first. It's not that she's mean, it's just that in the original story, Etoile is friendless because the ladies of high society don't want to befriend an orphan, who, as they say, sweet-talked her way up by being adopted. Etoile is aware of this, and also of the difference of status between her and Ripley, and looks quite miserable while saying she understands her refusal. Ripley can't hold herself, and jumps out to defend the female lead of the story she loves, saying that she knows she's a good person who helps others out of kindness. Etoile is moved to tears by her comment, and Ripley just can't help it. She agrees to being her friend, and of course, she laments it all the way home, since she has once more altered the original plot. Upon arrival, Ripley's parents go out to scold her as they've been worried sick. After all, to them, their daughter went to the ball the previous night and didn't come back home or sent any information about her whereabouts. She is scolded for her behavior, and Ripley tries to sweet-talk her father by acting cute, but this enrages them even more, and so they punish her and send her to her room. There, the maid comments on her corset is tied differently than how she tied it the previous night, and wonders what the reason might be. Well, we definitely know what the reason is, but Ripley is trying to cover it up when they're interrupted by the announcement that Rose, the villainess from the original story, has come to visit her. Ripley is very shocked and cautious about her visit. After all, they don't know each other, and the Rose in the novel was very dangerous. While she sometimes bullied Etoile more lightly, her evil deeds even got to kidnapping and assassination plots at times, all to get to be the Duke's wife. Ripley decides to be very careful and not provoke her, but the next scene shows the villainess drenched in tea. Tea that Ripley threw at her. What happened, you ask? Well, it seems that as soon as Rose arrived, she asked all sorts of questions about how Ripley got to her house in the Duke's carriage, which she somehow knew about. She was absolutely mad about it, and Ripley didn't really know how to answer her in panic. Based on her reactions, Rose found out that she slept with the Duke, and in her rage, she tried to throw her cup of tea at her while calling her shameless. To defend herself, Ripley opened her fan, which ended up shielding her but sent the tea flying right towards Rose herself. So, technically Ripley didn't throw it? A furious Rose is now literally trembling from rage as she promises that she will make sure Ripley repays this humiliation, even though technically she was the one who tried to attack her. So she slept with the male lead, became friends with the friendless female lead, and now has the book's evil villainess against her. After realizing she is a side character in a novel, Ripley decided to stay out of the plot and live a good life in the sidelines. But she accidentally slept with the male lead, befriended the friendless female lead, and managed to get the villainess against her. The day after the whole ordeal with Rose, the villainess, Ripley vows not to get tangled with the plot any further and just do nothing from now on. But her plans are trampled when a rather pitiful letter from Etoile arrives, inviting her to have tea at a sweets shop. Not being able to resist the sad female lead, Ripley goes right away, but not before sending over a letter to Duke Ingrid so that he also attends. Of course, she plans to set them up. Ripley tries to make Etoile look good in front of the Duke, but he is having none of it and asks with a very pissed-off expression what this nonsense is about. Ripley plays dumb, but in doing so is revealed that she has some responsibilities to attend to regarding the Duke. Etoile wants to know about this since she wants to help her friend repay any debt she might have. And Zeronis teases Ripley by trying to explain about their first encounter, but he can't because she screeches every single time. Taking this opportunity, Zeronis slips over an invitation for Ripley to accept, but she is suspicious about it. After receiving a very confident and seductive look from the Duke, she hesitantly opens it up to find an invitation to the royal ball. At home, Ripley's maid teases her endlessly over the fact that she said she was not going to do anything from now on, but somehow came home with an invitation for the royal ball. Even though she just wants to wear anything because she's not interested, Ripley agrees to go to the most expensive dress boutique to find a dress, because that's what the original Ripley would have done, and she didn't want to seem suspicious. Once there, she encounters none other than the villainous Rose. She tries to take a jab at her by saying the boutique seems more expensive than what she can afford. But while this does not affect Ripley in the slightest because she simply doesn't care, her maid Sylvia takes it to heart and defends her, saying that she can buy several dresses and that it's the least she can do given that she's the Duke's lady. This comment, of course, infuriates Rose. Ripley attempts to downplay her relationship with the Duke, but a very offended Sylvia insists on the strength of their relationship, saying he invited her to the royal ball. Rose is furious, and Ripley tries to just get a dress and leave, but Rose says she wants that very same dress for herself. To avoid conflict, Ripley concedes and chooses another one, but of course Rose says she is taking that one too. This happens again and again, and so Ripley just decides to go somewhere else. However, as she leaves, the cashier tells Rose the amount to pay for all she chose, and well, let's just say it is quite the amount. It seems that a blue dress Ripley had randomly grabbed was a super expensive designer piece, and so the total to pay is astounding. Sylvia does not let the opportunity slip, saying that it seems Miss Rose is short on cash, and that maybe she should go to a less expensive store. This prompts Rose to agree and pay for everything, while Ripley cries, thinking of how she'll suffer from this, and Sylvia smiles gleefully. A few days later at the ball, Ripley is beautiful as she dances with the Duke because, well, she must. She gets a bit flustered as he stares at her so sweetly, and leaves to a terrace in search of some fresh air. Zeronis decides to go with her, even though she refused, and once there, decides to ask her a question. And this question is basically when they should hold their wedding. Ripley is confused as to whose wedding he's talking about, but Zeronis is clear about the fact that since she took his first night from him, the wedding is theirs. Ripley really wants to refuse. After all, she's just supposed to be a side character, and he's holding her accountable to a night she does not even remember. However, nothing can be done about a calm and menacing Zeronis that basically insinuates that she either takes responsibility, or her and her family will end up being exiled in ruin. Or worse. Ripley tries to buy some time, saying she objected because she wanted to get engaged before having a wedding, as is the custom, and Zeronis instantly turns sweet again, agreeing to her terms. When Ripley says she'll need to speak to her parents to set up a date for the engagement, Zeronis smoothly asks for a kiss as an oath since she seems to lie so much. Indeed, he gets what he wanted, and as her cheeks get red, Ripley can't help but wonder how someone who is so menacing and practically evil can kiss her so sweetly. In the powder room, Ripley is once more confronted by Rose, who is wearing that expensive blue dress from the shop. She accuses Ripley of using tricks to seduce the Duke in the terrace, but Ripley just wonders how on earth she knows about what took place there since they were completely in private. Was she hiding in some bushes just staring at them? This gets her thinking. Male leads don't like villainesses who stick to them like glue and stalk them like Rose does. And having no restraint whatsoever, she happily asks Rose how to stalk someone into making them feel sick and tired of having you follow them. She thinks that maybe if she copies Rose, Zeronis will let her be. Rose takes offense to this and slaps Ripley across the face. Ripley is angered by this and tells Rose that it is her who is approaching the Duke and trying to seduce him by hanging around him and stalking him all the time. Just because something doesn't turn out the way she wants it to, she shouldn't blame others for it. After telling her this, Ripley leaves a furious Rose behind, and she is totally right in doing so. That girl is insane. Ripley hears a crash behind her from the pissed villainess that must be throwing stuff around in the bathroom, and she decides to promptly leave when she's stopped by Zeronis, who had been looking for her. The Duke is quick to notice the redness Rose's slap left behind on Ripley's cheek. He wants to find out what happened, but Ripley tries to pass it off as nothing. Just then, Rose comes out of the bathroom looking innocent and pretty and greets the Duke with a smile. Ripley hunches over instinctively. After all, Rose just slapped her, and the Duke notices this as well. Adding 2 and 2, he looks at Rose with a menacing glare. Gone is the sweet Zeronis who looks at Ripley. This here is the Duke from the rumors, the sinister and threatening Duke who does not care one bit about others. Zeronis asks about the slap, and Rose tries to play completely dumb and even pushes Ripley away to get his attention. However, Ripley has had enough of her two-faced attitude, and so with an annoyed face, she points at the smiling Rose and says, "Her. She slapped me." Of course, Rose won't admit it, and tries to accuse Ripley of fooling him, but Zeronis just steps in front of her and tells her not to point at his fiancée. Ooh, he just went and said it. Rose can't believe he would call her that, and glares at Ripley, who, still in her plan to become a villainess so the Duke will be disgusted at her, looks over at Rose smugly. The Duke and Ripley walk away, leaving a shocked Rose behind, and get into a carriage to go home. There, Zeronis is still very concerned about Ripley and her cheek, wondering if she's okay, to which Ripley is very flustered and confused, since this isn't the Zeronis she's heard and read about so much. He was supposed to be obsessive and menacing, not caring and thoughtful. She needs to put a stop to this before things get even more confusing for her. So she resolves to actually go through with the villainous plan, for which she gets thoroughly teased by Sylvia, of course. So she decides to try to be a villainess during her next outing with Étoile and torment her. But of course she can't. Her conscience is too much of an impediment in front of the sad and adorable Étoile. She even offers to lend her a dress of hers after trying to insult hers, for which Étoile is delighted. She then asks Ripley about her friends, but Ripley seems dejected about this question. We suddenly get a glimpse at her past life in Korea, where we can see a girl saying, "I feel sorry for myself for mistaking you as my friend." It's one of the very few times we get a glimpse at what her life was like in Korea, but what was it like? After all, we know very little about who Ripley really is. Back to the main story. After sensing Ripley is a bit conflicted by the question, Étoile takes her by the hand and tells her that she's her friend now, which gets Ripley all emotional and ruins her plan entirely. Once again, she failed on her mission and became even closer friends with the novel's female lead. Meanwhile, the male lead, the Duke, has sent her a letter inquiring about the engagement date and saying that he wants to meet up. Ripley ponders about all this in the carriage ride to the Duke's residence, when it suddenly comes to a stop. Apparently, one of the horses is injured and can't move anymore. Ripley insists on the horse being taken to be treated first instead of wasting resources on trying to get her to the Duke's house, and says she'll walk there instead. Everyone thinks she's mad because the ride from there is 20 minutes long by carriage. Imagine how long it must be by foot. But Sylvia is just moved by the fact that her lady wants to actually move around and exercise for a change. Just as this is being debated, a man we have never seen before shows up. Ripley is not sure who he is, but they accidentally blocked his way with the injured horse. The stranger kindly offers to take her to the Duke's residence himself, but Ripley is worried. After all, one must not get into strangers' rides, kids. Ripley is right in being worried, and she thinks Sylvia will be doubtful as well, but the maid's eyes are sparkling as she glances at such a handsome and polite man. She tells Ripley to accept the offer of the young master of the Marquisate. But wait, young Marquess? Ripley did know who he is. The second male lead from the novel, the heir Sir Wright. And apparently, the original Ripley liked him. On to the carriage they go, and along the way, the young heir asks about what Ripley will be doing at the Duke's. And trying to act like an evil woman, Ripley acts condescendingly, asking if she really must tell him. Sir Wright is still polite and kind, but Sylvia, on the other hand, stares at Ripley in a terrifying manner. Sir Wright comments that he had actually seen Ripley before at Étoile's party, and that he thought she was a fun person as she poured her signature drink. However, he couldn't say much since Ripley stopped him immediately. If Sylvia found out about her dark past, she would be severely scolded. They arrive at the mansion and Sir Wright offers Ripley his hand to get off the carriage. As he helps her down, he inches closer to her, softly asking if she could teach him how to make that bomb shot she made at the party. Look at him, so good-looking and so close. Is this going to be Ripley's new love interest? The young heir is very adamant on learning the recipe, and is all sparkles and smiles as he asks for it. However, behind them stands none other than Zeronis himself, and well, he's not happy with the scene. "You two seem close, huh?" he says with a deadly glare. Sir Wright seems ignorant about the target on his head, though. We jump right into the next scene in which Zeronis and Ripley discuss the engagement, which is after all what she went there to do. Ripley, of course, wants to close the matter, and in her new villainous mode, she decides that being ridiculously lavish is the way to go. So she demands for the most luxurious gown, the best shoes, a super expensive ring, the whole package, thinking that this will make Zeronis dislike her. But the Duke only replies by saying okay, as if they were talking about what type of bread to buy. He even states that he will be paying for everything himself, as everything has to be the best, given that even the Emperor will be in attendance. Ripley does not know what else to do. He is compliant with everything. But then, he asks about her relationship with Sir Wright, seeing as how they seemed so close and even arrived on the same carriage. Ripley's first thought is to clarify everything and explain the situation about the horse. However, she suddenly sees an opportunity. If she tells Zeronis she has a crush on Sir Wright, he might leave her alone. Or chop her head off. It's a high-risk bet, but being who she is, Ripley decides to flip that coin and very loudly proclaims that she has a crush on Sir Wright. Oh, Ripley. Ripley has gotten even closer to Etoile and has become the target of the novel's villainess, Rose. Now she's trying to get rid of Zeronis, who has basically already set a date for their wedding by declaring her love for someone she just met. Zeronis does not take this well. He stares at her somberly, and Ripley can only tremble and sweat as he very calmly and slowly reminds her of what would happen to her pretty head if she doesn't take responsibility for that night. Bearing this in mind, Ripley can't do anything but retreat, and so says that what really happened is that Sylvia, her maid, has a crush on Sir Wright. Somehow Zeronis buys this, which makes me wonder a bit about his intelligence, but well, a man in love will see what they want to see, I guess. He then states that though they're getting married, they don't really know about each other's pasts, and asks Ripley how many people she's been with. Ripley is suspicious about how he smiles as he asks this question, but still answers honestly, saying that she's not been with anyone else. Apparently, this is something Zeronis cannot buy, explaining that given how attractive she is, it would make no sense for her to have never been in a relationship. Ripley is completely puzzled by this explanation of his, and asks about his past, but she is very surprised by his answer. Zeronis tells her that since she's already talked so much to him about his childhood, she'd know he could never have been in a relationship before. Ripley is shocked by this because he seems to be talking about something she said on the night of the party while she was totally wasted. She can't really say she doesn't remember what he means since he'll probably murder her though, so she just smiles and says, "Oh, I see." See kids, alcohol is what gets you in these situations, so do avoid it. Drinking equals bad. Ripley does know about his childhood though, since she read about it in the novel. Zeronis was the child of the Duke's second wife, who was much younger in age. He had 3 adult half-brothers from the previous Duchess by the time he was born, which inevitably led to a power struggle between them and his mother. There was much bloodshed and constant fights within the family. And in the end, both the 3 brothers and Zeronis' mother died, leaving a scared 10-year-old Zeronis behind. Poor child. The now-grown Zeronis has a pained expression as he says that everyone must have blamed him back then, that if he hadn't been born, then there wouldn't have been a power struggle. Ripley will not stand for this, though, and quickly says that he did nothing wrong. It's not like it happened because he wanted it to. He was only 10. Zeronis smiles warmly at this, and caressing her face, remembers what happened on that fateful night in which they met. Back then, he tried to cut in the line of people who wanted to have one of her bomb cocktails, but she stopped him and told him he can't really do that. And what use is having a pretty face when he behaves like that? Yeah, she was totally drunk. Astounded, since he has never waited for others in his life, Zeronis left while listening to the muttering of people who wondered if Ripley's household would be destroyed tomorrow due to her drunken actions towards the Duke. A bit later, Ripley saw Zeronis in a balcony and greeted him with her drunken smile. Without being able to contain herself, she walked towards him and asked if he'd seen Duke Zeronis, since she can't seem to find him anywhere and is curious about the male lead, which of course is a term he didn't understand. Still, he wondered why she was looking for him and asked her without revealing his identity. She quickly said it was because he's supposed to be handsome. Zeronis was shocked by her words and inquired if she wasn't scared of the Duke, who seemed to be so evil according to the rumors. Ripley didn't give it a second thought and just spoke her mind while distracted with pretty drinks, saying that he didn't grow up like that without reason. Zeronis started telling her she should stay away from this Duke because he murdered all of his family, and it was rumored that he even poisoned his father to inherit the position, which is untrue. But Zeronis still felt guilty about the pain his father suffered because of the power struggle and its consequences. Zeronis was still talking about this when Ripley, looking angry, slapped his hand and told him he really was a rude person. She was absolutely enraged as she asked what the Duke ever did to him, and what did he even know? Amazed by how strong her position is, Zeronis asked her what she'd tell the Duke if he were in front of her, and she said, "It's not your fault, Zeronis. You've done nothing wrong." And that was the moment he fell for her. Her warm smile, her strong personality. Seeing how she couldn't even stay standing without falling, he offered to take her to his house to meet the Duke. Now, here's when I myself have some doubts about the ethics of this whole relationship. I am quite conflicted with the whole "took her home drunk, maybe she would have said no if sober" aspect of the situation. But this is what the author envisioned, so I'm gonna stick to recapping on this part. Proper, sober consent is important, people. Never forget that. This should never be overlooked. Once home, the Duke revealed his identity to Ripley, and she was super happy about finally meeting him, telling him he's indeed super handsome. She told him that there was something she wanted to tell him, and then confesses that she liked him, that she loved his ability to love someone and wanted to be loved like that. She even said she still liked him then, after which they kissed. It was then that Zeronis decided he would make her his, even if she didn't remember anything about that night. It might take a lot of time, but he would do his best to have her fall for him as many times as needed. Now in the present, Ripley is very conflicted by how charmingly he smiled as he recalled her actions that night, though he didn't tell her about them. He looked so attractive and was so sweet. She notices she is slowly being swayed by him, which is not good for the development of the novel's plot. After much brainstorming, she comes up with her new tactic. She will become a nun. Sylvia nearly faints as Ripley angelically says she will only follow God's order and stay away from men. She tells her that she had never even believed in religion, but Ripley bluntly stated that she'll start believing from that day onwards, which has Sylvia on her knees begging for the forgiveness of Ripley's soul. This plan doesn't last very long, because as soon as she learns of the lifestyle of the nuns, with little to no food and hours upon hours of praying every day, she desists. Besides, her father would probably not agree to it, and she needs his consent. Just then, Ripley realizes that she doesn't have to actually become a nun. If the Duke believes it, it'll be enough. And so she goes to the Duke's house to tell of her newly found resolve. He is quick to crush it, though, pointing out that she can't become a bride of God given that she's already spent her first night with him. Once more, Ripley's plan spirals down the drain. She still insists, saying that God will not mind about her past if she is true in the present, to which Zeronis agrees. He agrees too easily. Smiling, he walks towards Ripley and sits right in front of her, as she starts blushing madly. He inches closer to her, saying that indeed God would not mind her past, at which point she literally has to turn her face away from the overdose of hotness she's getting from the Duke. She tries to repeat the whole "I will become a devoted nun" speech, when she suddenly sees that Zeronis is taking off his tie. Oh my, oh my. Zeronis drops the tie as he smiles, asking if she indeed no longer has any secular thoughts. Ripley can't even think now as his pecs start showing. She literally has to swipe her drool away. Zeronis starts inching closer now, telling her that the present is what's most important, and Ripley cannot help herself any longer and closes her eyes, awaiting the kiss that never comes. When she opens her eyes, Zeronis is smiling in an amused way, standing away from her, telling her that since she can't abandon her desire, the path of a nun is not suitable for her, and says that regardless of the past or the present, she will be his bride. A bit too possessive if you ask me, but Ripley did describe him as an obsessive male lead in the novel, and apparently she liked that, so we're gonna roll with it for now. Back at her place, Ripley has become desperate and, not knowing what to try, actually confesses to Sylvia about having slept with the Duke and him asking her to take responsibility by marrying him. Sylvia is at a loss of words for a moment, but then, even though she thinks the situation is quite bizarre, she says that maybe it's a good thing since she'll become a duchess. But Ripley already has everything she could need or want. That title means nothing to her. Just then, after debating what to do with Sylvia, Ripley gets another one of her ideas. She will just do the opposite of what a normal person would do to make someone like them. That should make them unlike them, right? Her conclusion is that she will become an ugly, lazy, and dumb woman. She proclaims this while Sylvia looks conflicted in the background. 3 days later, she has become as dirty as she can, like covered in dirt everywhere. Her eyes glimmer with expectation as she puts her plan into action. Duke Englid finally arrives, and he becomes silent as soon as he sees her smiling so widely while covered in so much filth. She then tries to act dumb, even using a silly face she'd practiced in the mirror. Zeronis notices her dirty nails, and Ripley thinks she's finally managed to make him feel disgusted and he'll leave her alone. But of course, her plan fails. Zeronis starts complimenting her on how she must value manual labor a lot for her nails to be that way, which is worthy of her being his wife. And when she says she got them from playing in the mud, he says that's cute of her. Ripley does not know what to do when her father suddenly arrives. She can't even get a word in before Zeronis greets him, and holding her closer, even if she's dirty, tells him he wants to marry his daughter. The father is shocked by this, even more so when the Duke says he fell in love with her at first sight, with her looking that filthy. But the Duke convinces him, and now they'll be getting engaged in 2 days. Once more in her room, and after a very long shower, Ripley tries to find a solution to this whole predicament with Sylvia. But the conclusion is that, given the Duke's personality and his words, her only options are marriage or death. The maid wonders why Ripley thinks marrying him is such a bad idea, and she seems bummed as she says it's not her position, meaning that the original female lead of the novel should be the one marrying him. Sylvia, not understanding the full meaning of her words, says that the position belongs to the first person who arrives, but Ripley does not want to alter the plot any further. Furthermore, she starts remembering some sad events from her past life, which we still don't know much about, and says she does not want to go through that again. Therefore, in this situation, in which the only options are marriage or death, she chooses death. Not really, though. She's only going to pretend to get seriously injured to the point where she's unable to move, so that the Duke will break the engagement, since he wouldn't be able to marry someone who can't fulfill her obligations as the future Duchess. I think this plan is taking it too far, and Sylvia does too. But still, 2 days later, Ripley is in her engagement dress, looking down from a balcony, ready to put her plan into action. Ripley has tried absolutely everything to get rid of Zeronis, but he simply won't let her go. Already on the day of the engagement's announcement, she uses her last resort, faking an almost fatal injury. Ripley stares down from the balcony, dressed in her engagement outfit. This is it. When the time comes, she will jump into a bedsheet previously secured by Sylvia and then roll to the ground, where with the help of fake blood, she'll fake to be severely injured. And the time comes when the Duke's carriage rides into Ripley's residence. Sylvia is very worried, but Ripley is determined, with flashbacks of her past and her original world haunting her into action. Images of a smiling Zeronis go through her mind, but she ignores them, closes her eyes, and takes the leap. She makes it to the bedsheet safely, but then falls a bit hard from there to the ground. After confirming she's okay, Sylvia puts on the performance of a lifetime. Ripley thinks everything is going according to the plan, but then Zeronis comes running at full speed towards her. Ripley is surprised, but pretends to stay unconscious as Zeronis' hand trembles, scared to even touch her. As he orders for a doctor to arrive, he holds her hand tightly, still shaking. It is then that the thought finally crosses her mind. It seems like I've done a horrible deed against this person. Already in her room, the doctor, who is in on the whole ruse, treats the few scratches that were caused by the branches and tells Ripley that she did sprain her ankle quite a bit. Still, since she wants to make it seem as though she's crippled, she wraps up Ripley's head for good measure, laughing about how if they were discovered, they'd probably be beheaded for trying to trick a duke. The doctor seems very chill about all this. It is then that Zeronis walks in. He's extremely concerned about her condition, and after being told that she would be crippled and have a scar on her face, he sighs and said that's a relief. A relief? Ripley wonders. People would assume she's no longer qualified to be married, but he's only relieved that she's made it out alive. He is still concerned as he smiles at her, who is pretending to be asleep, and he tells her that he didn't know how he would have lived were she to have died. At that moment, Ripley finally understands. He honestly, truly loves her. Took her long enough. Because of this realization, we finally get a glimpse of what happened in her original world. Apparently, she's always been dense about others' intentions towards her, and once, the boyfriend of a friend of hers started texting her after they all hung out together, offering her some training weights she'd mentioned she was interested in. He was very insistent on delivering them to her area himself, and though she told him she'd rather get them when she saw her friend again, she finally gave in, not giving it much thought. She really thought it was nothing, so she didn't even tell her friend, thinking he'd definitely tell her himself. Big mistake. However, when they meet up to get them, he was once more insistent, but now about teaching her how to use them right, telling her he'd take her to the park to teach her. She refused politely, since it seemed like a bother and because her friend had been complaining about him being very busy lately. He was very suspicious about this comment, saying he was suddenly free, and she accepted his offer thinking he was only being kind. A similar incident took place at her university library, where the guy told her she can't really take a hint and confessed he liked her, telling her he'd leave her friend to be with her. Past Ripley finally understood the situation and strongly refused, which caused a scene. Not soon after, her friend heard about it and went to confront her. Past Ripley tried to explain it was a misunderstanding, but her friend just cornered her, pointing out the library scene, the messages which she learned from scrolling through his phone, the secret meeting. Ripley didn't know what to say. She really thought he'd told her everything. He'd even texted her friend telling her he wanted to break up. Ripley couldn't even get a word in, and the now ex-boyfriend arrived trying to defend her, but her friend wouldn't have any of it. There was a huge scene and people all around started gossiping, even posting online about it. Without being able to say anything, Ripley became the one who stole the boyfriend to the eyes of everyone else. In the end, she was bullied left and right about it, with people leaving hurtful notes on her locker. She couldn't even go to school anymore. And so she was left with one lesson: don't covet the man of another woman. Which she didn't, at all. But because of this, she is now afraid to mess with the male lead of the story, because he technically belongs to Etwal. She doesn't want to go through that again. Our poor Ripley. Back in the present, Zeronis goes into Ripley's room to check on her once more. While she pretends to be asleep, he kisses her forehead and tells her he hopes she'll recover quickly and that she'll be the most beautiful bride. Ripley can't pretend she's asleep anymore and finally asks why he wants to marry her so badly, to which he smiles sweetly and says it's because she's his first. Ripley tries to argue that she's not as kind as he thinks, and that she's a despicable woman who came in between a friend and her lover. She tells him her story, after which he instantly asks if she's bragging, because the only thing that happened is that she tried to distance herself from the guy, but he, like a moth drawn to a flame, kept on coming back to pester her. Still, Zeronis tells her that if she considers herself a villainess, then he will be her villain. Ripley keeps on insisting on not wanting to repeat the same situation, and thus he must stay away from her, to which he finally sighs and mutters that he can't understand her. Ripley thinks this is it. He's finally become tired of her. He's seen how vile she is, how she isn't who he thought she was. However, she is completely surprised when Zeronis tells her it was not her fault whatsoever. Ripley had only seen herself as the one to blame in the situation, and though she could have been more aware of what was happening, her actions held no malice at all. Zeronis tells her she is not to blame, and although she is moved because no one had ever told her those precious words before, she still insists that she can't be with him because she's not the female lead. Zeronis doesn't know why she uses those terms, but he still plays along, and tells her that if he's the male lead, as she says, that he will do whatever he wants and choose the female lead himself. She still insists on not being worthy, of only being a wallflower no one looks at. But Zeronis stops her, and looks at her sweetly, holds her hand and kissing its back, and tells her she is his beautiful and lovely female lead. Later that day, Etwal pays her a visit, and she cries her eyes out over Ripley's condition. She has come over with boxes upon boxes of gifts and fruits, and even a special ointment for scars with a secret recipe from her family. Ripley notices her friend is once again wearing the dress she wore last time, and that even though she's frugal with money, she still spent all of that on her. The guilt is too heavy for her, and she finally breaks down, apologizing to her and telling her she likes the Duke. Etwal is like, okay, but then she's totally confused when Ripley tells her he should have been with her. Ripley then tells her that she stole her path from her, but Etwal has a warm smile on her face as she explains the following. 'If everything had followed the original path, she wouldn't be here today with her. Ripley then tells her that if everything had followed the original path, she wouldn't be here today with her. If everything had followed the original path, she wouldn't be here today with her. If everything had followed the original path, she wouldn't be here today with her. either because she wouldn't have been born, she would have stayed in the orphanage, or she wouldn't have had a single friend to talk to. But here she is, happy to have Ripley as her friend. There is no original, there is simply the present. With Etoile's words and noticing the love from everyone around her, Ripley has decided she will no longer be on the sidelines, pretending to be the Ripley character she possessed. She will actually be Ripley, live as her, and become part of this world she's in. So now, she has to figure out how to undo this whole fake injury mess to tell Zeronis she actually does want to get married to him. But first things first, she wants to play matchmaker between Etoile and Sir Right, because if she's stealing the male lead, then she sure is pumpkin pie getting her on the second male lead. And so in her next visit, Ripley asks Etoile what her ideal type of man is like, getting suddenly worried that she might like icy, bad-tempered men, seeing how in the novel she fell for Zeronis so quickly. However, she is truly surprised when Etoile says her type are handsome men. Etoile sparkles as she stands by her decision, saying a pretty face will never change. It is then that we all learn why Etoile was so in love with Zeronis in the novel. Because he was hot. I mean, I can't really blame her, because a pretty face can do wonders, but like, anyone could have been her male lead as long as he was hot. Anyway, Ripley tries to create an opportunity for the matchmaking to take place, and so invites Etoile, who is very fond of the orphanage, and Sir Right, whose family contributes a lot to the orphanage as well, to pay the establishment a visit and volunteer. Since Ripley's face is supposed to be injured and she can't really go around showing her face in case the Duke's men see her, she wears a mask for the occasion. However, the mask Sylvia gives her is a bit more eccentric than she would have liked. The children are fascinated by Ripley and the mask, and so they get along with her very well. Etoile, Ripley, and Sir Right cook and tend to the children, and from time to time Ripley watches the other two from afar, fangirling about how well the encounter between them seems to be going. After the volunteer work is done, they all head to the sweets shop where Ripley and Sir Right are extremely tired. Still, Ripley's wing girl job is not done, and she starts complimenting Sir Right so that Etoile will like him more, to the point of even saying he's handsome to his face. Of course, this makes things a bit awkward for everyone except Ripley, so she starts talking about the kids in the orphanage and how well they all did with the volunteering, which gets Etoile and Sir Right to start complimenting each other. Ripley is so happy. Everything is coming along together. Etoile and Sir Right, Zeronis and her. But then, as soon as she gets home, a cane flies at her direction, and it belongs to none other than Zeronis, who sports a very dark expression as he mentions that she dodged that well, given that she was supposed to be injured to the point of almost being crippled. Oh boy. Zeronis tells her he has ears and eyes everywhere and knew about her outing. He takes no time in taking off the veil she wears, only to reveal that her face is not scarred at all. Finally, he asks her how she is suddenly healed. He is very cold as he questions her, and stares somberly at her as she tries to tell him that she recovered quickly with the help of some medicine. He is offended by her thinking that he would buy that, and tells her that it seems like he was mistaken, asking her if it was fun watching him be all heartbroken about her injury, or seeing him being so ready to give her the world if she asked. He grabs her arms and can't even look at her face as he tells her she deceived him, and once more, Ripley is unable to say anything. Oh my, the drama! Ripley has finally realized that she does want to be with Zeronis, and does not feel guilty about it anymore. However, he just discovered that she faked her injury just to get rid of him. He is angry, he's hurt, and he has decided to finally cast her away. Ripley, I told you were going too far. Furious and hurt, Zeronis grabs Ripley's arms and can't even look at her face as he tells her she deceived him, and once more, she is unable to say anything. Finally, she says something. His name. It makes him lose it completely. The name he had always found so comforting when said by her lips now stings him like 1,000 knives on his chest. He looks at her, despair taking over, telling her she can't say his name so carelessly since they are strangers with no relation, as she had always insisted on them being. He has the eyes of a madman as he caresses her face, asking her what he should do, if he should act according to his reputation, what kind of punishment would be suitable for her. Ripley looks down, and she really wants to tell him the truth about being from another world, about the original fate of the novel, about her not wanting to disrupt it, about the love she feels for him. But she can't. She just cries. Zeronis asks for an explanation once more, but upon her silence, he says she's evil, deceiving others with her words, and as he walks away, he tells her to look forward to her paying for her sins. The door closes behind him, and Ripley falls to the floor in tears, hating herself for what she's done. Sylvia finds her soon after, and after learning of what happened, tries to comfort her by telling her that this is what she had originally wanted, so it might not be too bad. It is true. After all, she has struggled with getting rid of Zeronis since the beginning of the story, and she's finally accomplished it. Remembering her original goal and that the flow of the story might be restored, she gets up, thinking about how she might be able to actually leave this world, which after all is not really her own. She tries to convince that the pain in her heart and the coldness of his once affectionate voice can be endured because, in the end, it doesn't matter. It's just a story she once read in a book. As she thinks this, however, she can only cry with deep hurt. Oh, Ripley, your actions were not the best, but you always had good intentions. The days go by, and while Ripley is trying to get over her heartbreak, she receives a visit from Etoile in which she finds out something rather infuriating. Etoile's family has been trying to receive investment from the Duke for a while as they were trying to establish themselves in the business of trade, and things have been going favorably. However, they recently received notice that he would not be involved with her family any longer. When? The day after Zeronis called things off with Ripley. Coincidence? Ripley thinks not. Furious about the thought of him taking his anger for her out on her one and only friend, Ripley heads to his mansion right away. As soon as she arrives, she is met by the butler, and since she doesn't have an appointment with him, she is led to a reception room to wait, being told that it might take a very long while for the Duke to have a minute for her in his busy schedule. Once alone, Ripley blushes from embarrassment because for some reason, she thought she could just drop by and would not have to wait like all the other times she had visited. But well, she must have forgotten how angry he is at her over having had his heart broken. Wanting to talk to the Duke alone, Ripley sends Sylvia to wait in the carriage, and so the wait begins. She waits, and she waits, and she waits, until she looks out the window and there he is, right there, talking to Rose? Was he busy because he was with Rose all this time? He moves on fast. Even though the Duke arrived at the mansion, he still did not go see Ripley right away. She waits for hours without eating anything, and after a while she falls asleep in the couch, tired and hungry. She is woken up when a hand caresses her cheek, but when she opens her eyes, there's only Zeronis, looking at her coldly. He scolds her for falling asleep in someone else's home after dropping by without an appointment, but Ripley just tries to laugh it off and gets right to the point of the conversation. The Duke is a coward, she says. He seems angry by her statement, but then confused when she mentions Etoile. She accuses him of withdrawing his investment in Etoile's family because of their breakup, but he just raises his hand to stop her and tells her she's very mistaken, still with his extremely cold eyes. The air is very tense, but suddenly he taps her in the forehead, telling her that firstly, even if what she said is what happened, she, who made such a grave mistake, should not have come running pointing at him so confidently. He keeps on poking at her forehead as he tells her that she didn't even make an appointment and is so demanding and insulting. Ripley swats his hand away and tries to get a word in, but he continues, explaining that the reason why he withdrew the investment has nothing to do with her, but that it was a business strategy and was carefully premeditated. Ripley has finally realized it. In her now all the Duke does revolves around me mentality, she's made a very big mistake indeed. Her face is almost as red as her hair as she bows asking for forgiveness. She literally wants for the earth to swallow her so she won't have to be facing him anymore after such an embarrassing display. The Duke asks why she bows before him to ask for forgiveness, and she simply says it's because she was wrong, But then he asks her why she didn't ask for forgiveness before, and if that means she thinks he was wrong back then and not her. Finally, they get to talking about that. She reveals she tried to trick him because she didn't want to marry him, and that she didn't really remember what had happened on the night they met. She says the Duke had insisted so much upon the marriage, but she didn't want it. Zeronis gets closer to her and grabs her by the chin, telling her he already knew she didn't want to marry, and about her silly schemes, and that he didn't care because he had no intention of letting her go. After saying this, he kisses her right in the middle of the room and holds her closer after he asks her out loud what she has done to him. In the past, all those who betrayed him were easily discarded, but he can't do that to her. He still wants her. Whatever happened after that, we don't know, because we jump right onto the next scene in which Ripley and Etoile are having tea, and they discuss the invitation they received to Rose's boat party. Ripley knows that Rose sent the invitation to them because she wants to show off to her competitors, and she knows that in the novel, this ended badly for Etoile, so she tells her it's best not to go at all. Etoile agrees, but her father, the Baron, wants her to go to make friends, so she asks Ripley to go with her, and so she accepts. Now to the fan part. Choosing the dresses and accessories for the party. Since she knows Etoile is not one to spend, Ripley shares her closet with her. It is finally the day of the party, and Etoile looks radiant, while Ripley, who also looks pretty, looks proud on the sidelines. Just then, though, she bumps into the Duke, and not really knowing how to behave after that kiss, she smiles and waves saying hi, but he just stares at her. They stare at each other in silence while Ripley curses at him in her mind because he made her so confused and has thought about that kiss so much, but now he's just indifferent, not replying to her greeting. He tells her he doesn't want to talk to her, but he still stands in front of her, not moving. Tsundere much? He finally leaves, only to be chased after by a sprinting Rose, who stares at her coldly, disgustingly, before grinning towards the Duke, and then leads him into the boat, grabbing him by the arm, asking him if he wants a private tour of the boat. Yeah, the boat. Sure, the boat. Ripley is absolutely jealous and furious watching from behind, and as they leave, Rose gives her one last glance, smirking at her. This prompts Ripley to make a very low IQ decision. Drink. Ripley, didn't you learn anything from the first chapter? Time skip, and indeed, Ripley got drunk. Her face is flushed, and her mind is a bit numb, so much so that she bumps into someone as soon as she turns around. And that someone is none other than our Duke. They stare at each other against the starry night sky, and he asks her if she's drunk, which she denies as she tries to grab another drink. He stops her, though, and annoyed, Ripley asks, "Why did you let go?" Zeronis is confused, as Ripley reminds him he said he had no intention of letting her go, even if he knew of her plans, so why did he? Fireworks illuminate the night sky as she asks him not to let go of her. He asks if she thinks he released her, after which she says that he ignored her and went along with what Rose wanted. Finally, he asks her if she's jealous, and she looks right into his eyes as she says yes. She's about to confess to him, when all of a sudden, the Duke is called out by Rose's father to show him the boat. Nice timing, man. Ripley decides to go look for Etoile because she wants to leave, but little did she know that she was followed by Rose. Of course, the mad woman starts on and on about her delusion of marriage with Zeronis because their families have a good work relationship and yada yada, and wraps up the whole speech with a warning to Ripley, telling her to leave the Duke alone. This, Ripley cannot take, and she resolutely says no, that she will continue to be with him and that she will not let him go. Not liking the answer, Rose proceeds to push Ripley off board. This psycho. She literally just tried to murder our female lead. A splash can be heard as Ripley's body hits the ocean waves, and she's in shock for a minute, asking herself if this is the end. But no, she must swim, and swim she does. But she is running out of breath when in the water she is found by our Duke Zeronis. Seeing as how she's in desperate need of oxygen, Zeronis acts quickly and gives her a kiss to give her the air in his lungs. As soon as they reach the surface, Zeronis is worried, asking her why she jumped in, and if it was because he ignored her. But when she tries to explain that Rose pushed her, the cold takes over, and she starts stuttering so much that she can't even speak properly. Holding her, Zeronis tells her that he will never let go of her, as she asked. The couple is quickly picked up by a small boat, and Zeronis pulls Ripley closer to him as she shivers, giving her a kiss on the forehead. She then asks him if he meant what he said in the water, that he won't let go of her. And he says it's literal, but can't really speak more about that now because words would be insufficient. So to answer, he would have to kiss her right there and then go further. Ripley stops him for her sake, for the sake of the boatman who is so red that he himself might faint, and for our sake. Because honestly, I'm about to start jumping up and down and giggle like a fangirl, and how would I be able to keep on recapping if he goes on? Once on land, Sylvia and Etoile cry because they were worried about Ripley, but the Duke interrupts them, saying that he will take Ripley to his mansion to warm up. Sylvia is confused. He's cold and wet too. He'll have to change as soon as possible, but Zeronis tells her that they both will make sure to do that. Still confused, Sylvia says there are no spare clothes for her in his mansion. And now completely taking over, Zeronis is clear as day with his intentions, saying that she won't be needing a spare set of clothes. Okay. Whew. Okay, I need air. Sylvia needs it too, as she blushes madly and is sent to fetch some clothes for her if she desires. But their destination will not change. Ripley tries to make sense of his words as she is carried away because her mind is not working properly at the moment, and Zeronis takes the opportunity to tease her further, asking if she needs an explanation. Once in his mansion, Ripley warms up and heads to the main room where a bed with roses awaits her. She is nervous, but is soon distracted by how soft the bed is. She is scared out of her senses, though, when Zeronis finds her in that position, but she quickly calms down as they sit to talk. Zeronis tells her that he was never really trying to get rid of her, and when Ripley reminds him of his actions, he tells her that he tried to let her go, but couldn't. Normally, people who deceive him like that pay with their lives, but he couldn't do that to her. He is embarrassed by how emotional he is about her, how he can't stop keeping her in his thoughts, and he finally says it. I am in love with you. He will never let go of her because he loves her. Ripley blushes, but she will not leave him alone in his confession and replies by saying she loves him too. Zeronis can't contain himself and grabs her hand to kiss it, only to trail upwards towards her lips. He then takes her to the bed, where he asks her if she is sober this time, and she looks bashful as she says she is. He inches closer to her and tells her that she can't say she doesn't remember later on. He asks her to call his name, again and again and again. Ripley wonders why he was depicted as obsessive in the book. But then she realizes that for her, if she had to give his eyes, smile, and loving voice to someone else, she would go crazy herself. Finally understanding what love means to her, the eventful night ends as they become one in every single way. The day after that beautiful moment, Ripley decides to go stand up to Rose, who basically tried to murder her. The villainess seems to know she's in trouble and offers extravagant stuff to Ripley for her to let go of the matter. Ripley, however, only wants two things: an honest apology and for Rose to give up on the Duke. To the first one, Rose complies, which makes Ripley very happy. But upon hearing the second one, she loses it once again. The villainess is confused as to why Ripley even wants an apology, as if that would change anything in that world. But she is furious when the matter of letting go of the Duke is mentioned. Ripley just wants for her to move forward and live her best life, but Rose demands to marry the Duke because of her family standing. It is her right. How? How is that your right, Rose? The man does not love or want you, and he has enough power to choose for himself. She knows this, though, and is rendered speechless in front of Ripley, who decides to leave the matters in her hands and leaves, hoping this will be enough to change Rose's bloody fate. Meanwhile, trouble is never over for our female lead. Upon meeting Etoile, she finds out that her friend is actually being stalked by a madman who sends her 10 letters per day along with underwear for her. What the actual fork? Being that Etoile's parents seem to be away and Etoile is very distressed by the situation, Ripley takes the matter into her own hands and waits for the stalker to show up once more, hiding in some bushes with Sylvia, who, of course, questions the whole intelligence of this plan. And right she is, because there is no plan. The stalker shows up and Ripley confronts the man, who introduces himself as Peyran, and is in dire need of psychiatric help because, indeed, he is a stalker who cannot even think straight. Ripley tells him he must stop, and that this is cowardly of him, which he interprets as him having to be more bold, so he stands in front of Etoile's house, not even trying to be discreet for a whole night. Is there no police in this world? Ripley thinks that this is all a consequence of her being with Zeronis, because if he were with Etoile, this guy would not even be considered a side character. This thought actually gives her an idea, and given her history, we know it can't be good. And of course, it isn't. She has the idea of having Etoile be in a fake relationship to drive the stalker away, and she plans on her pretend lover to be Mr. Right, which would take down two birds with one stone since it would also get him and Etoile to become closer. But unfortunately, he's not available and sends Zeronis in his stead. Zeronis, of course, thinks this plan is silly and casually suggests ruining Perrin's whole household, which terrifies the girls. Ripley starts speaking too much for her own good again, saying she prefers a man who just follows her no questions asked, which pisses Zeronis off and makes him agree to her request. Etoile, meanwhile, is very stressed in the background. And so they pretend to be in love, Zeronis not even touching Etoile's shoulder, which actually works, but they have to keep it up for the stalker to actually be convinced and give up for good. Ripley, however, is suddenly saddened when she sees them pretending to be a couple, as described in the original plot. No, Ripley! We had already decided you were the female lead of the story now. Don't doubt yourself. Everyone in high society believes the Duke has dumped Ripley too after a few days of this new couple rumor circulating, adding to her anxiousness. Seeing her so distressed, Sylvia decides to take her to her weird hobby, which is actually something the previous Ripley liked, but our Ripley is frankly weirded out by it too. So off she goes to the fortune teller, who starts saying whatever she heard from the rumors circulating around, which Ripley can easily tell. But she is hooked when the fortune teller tells her Zeronis and her are fated to be together and even buys a dream catcher from her because of this. How Ripley is so easily tricked. However, there's something strange. Before leaving, the fortune teller asked Ripley if the happiness doll she gave her last time was effective. It was supposed to be a doll that would give her a new life. This sounds very familiar. Our current Ripley is definitely living a new life. Still, the fortune teller only tells her not to hesitate, which Ripley does not really understand and doesn't give her any more information. I think this visit left her with more questions than anything else. Let's get back to the matter at hand, Zeronis and Etoile's fake relationship. To be honest, I think Zeronis' idea of destroying Perrin was better than this whole situation, because now Zeronis and Etoile have to be a couple at public events too. Ripley decides to go there to help just in case, but she really is not needed. Boy, they act too well. That is until Perrin decides to make a whole scene saying that he's the only one who can make Etoile happy, that Zeronis is just a tomcat who does not really want her. A tomcat, please. Ripley is about to go there before Zeronis kills the man for his loose tongue, but he unexpectedly wraps his arm around Etoile's waist and wonders out loud if they should prove their love, lifting Etoile's chin up and leaning closer. Oh no, I can't take this. Ripley can't move. She's read about their first kiss so many times. What is she to do now? Should she just let the story repeat itself again? Stop, she yells at last. Thank goodness, Ripley, I was about to cry! In front of a murmuring crowd full of gossiping lady dogs, she makes her way towards them and decides to be blunt. She accuses Perrin of being a stalker who wouldn't quit and admits to this whole thing being a ruse to get him to leave Etoile alone while trying to save his neck, but she won't suffer for this disgusting man anymore. Not only this, but she takes it even further. She declares that the Duke and her are still very much in love and, turning to him, publicly asks for his hand in marriage. Everyone is shocked, including Zeronis, who soon smiles, taking her hand in his and leaning over to kiss it while accepting her marriage proposal. Ah! You guys! This whole scene! I literally have goosebumps. I know Ripley caused all of this as per usual, but I am so happy just looking at this scene. all is well but ends well, and so Ripley prepares for her wedding by learning that she has to learn to carry it out as expected of this world. She visits Etoile, whose stalker has finally disappeared, but is now troubled by her family's failing business. Guys, I like Etoile. She's nice, but why is there always so much trouble surrounding her? And actually, the answer is Ripley herself, because this issue was caused because the Duke is no longer investing with Etoile's family due to Ripley's shenanigans, if you remember from earlier in the video. Ripley wants to help her, however, she knows nothing about business. At home too, it seems like her own father is having trouble with his own trade, but she can't seem to help in that matter either. That is until Sylvia put some of Etoile's ointment she gifted her a while back on her face while singing praises about how all of Ripley's scars have disappeared because of it, and no traces were left on her skin even after all the troublesome situations she's been through. This gives Ripley an idea. The next day, she sells all of her jewelry and goes to Etoile's house and declares she will invest in her family's secret ointment that cures it all. She tells her friend that they can make a business out of this. Etoile is very surprised. Ripley knows this might fail, but it will at least be her first try. They get Etoile's father's approval to carry on the deal, and Ripley leaves happily, absolutely forgetting she actually has a wedding to prepare for. Someone get Zeronis a large dose of patience, please. He will really need it, given that she totally forgot about him and their plans for days while thinking about the ointment and the business. He finally goes to her house to see her, and she explains the situation to him. He's confused as to why she wants to get her own business since he's loaded and they'll marry, but he doesn't understand that she wants to be a financially independent woman who does not rely on her husband for everything. Wow, Ripley, we stand a confident self-made businesswoman. You go, girl. Zeronis is still mad at how she keeps postponing the wedding arrangements, but is radiant when she says she's taking longer because she needs time to decide since she needs to only choose the best to become the most beautiful she can be, and he wouldn't understand because he's so handsome already. He smiles as he leaves, saying she'll be the most beautiful bride no matter what, and sends her a designer for the dress the following day. However, while speaking to the designer, Ripley's thoughts are still immersed in the ointment stuff, and so Sylvia watches with a worried face while a complete misunderstanding about the dress design takes place. Because of this, the dress that arrives is extremely revealing for their culture. Don't get me wrong, I love the dress. That open back, the layers, the bow in the back? Ripley, however, is worried it might be too much for that place, but Sylvia tells her she can wear a veil or let her hair down to cover it, so it's okay. On another day, Mr. Wright, Ripley, and Etoile are having tea, and the pair is concerned with Ripley's looks, since no amount of concealer and eye cream can cover the tiredness of having to manage a wedding, new business, and also coordinate activities for the orphanage, which is the reason why they met. While Mr. Wright and Ripley are returning in a carriage alone, it looks like he wants to tell her something very important. Of course, Ripley becomes delusional and thinks Wright is trying to confess to her, but he actually wants to tell her he likes Etoile. Ugh, the cringe. Poor Ripley is turned into a stone while he apologetically tries to tell her she's great, but definitely not his type. Past this whole cringy situation, it seems Mr. Wright really is head over heels for Etoile and how strong-minded she is, and he asks Ripley for help in winning her over. Ripley readily agrees to help him in any way she can, and they talk about Etoile until they reach her home, where he helps her down the carriage. Right in front of an angry Zeronis, who has been thoroughly ignored due to her being so busy lately. Oh boy. Zeronis questions Ripley about how she has been too busy and not handling wedding stuff. But what he is actually the most jealous of is the fact that while designing the logo for her new business, Ripley drew the face of a kid that looks a bit like a young Mr. Wright. He starts insisting that a kid with blonde hair and blue eyes would be much more adorable. Is this supposed to be the cold throat-slicing Duke? Zeronis proceeds to tell Ripley that she should stop all business until after the wedding, since she clearly can't handle both. Ripley is not happy about this, but Zeronis insists, saying that the wedding must take place as soon as possible, and that he wasn't planning on letting her be a free lady if this was what it meant. And that, kids, is what we call toxic. I mean, Ripley is definitely not handling things well, but he literally confines her to her room till all the wedding matters are settled. That's not okay. Ripley still manages to stay up all night working, and by the time the shoemaker arrives with her wedding shoes the next morning, she is a mess. She's happy as she tries them on, but clearly being so tired has taken its toll on her, as her nose starts to bleed. In complete Ripley fashion, to avoid the blood from staining her shoes, she decides to fall forward, saving the shoes but injuring her forehead. Sporting a patch on her forehead, Ripley is happy as she admires her wedding dress and shoes. She then has tea with Zeronis, who already knows that she has not advanced much with the wedding preparations, which is evident by her tired looks, which horrify her. He scolds her for getting injured and explains that the reason why he has her locked up is that she is straining herself to handle everything, which is clearly affecting her and her health. She should just relax and only concern herself about simple wedding matters for a while, and ask help from others when needed since she's trying to handle everything by herself. His intentions are right, but his methods are quite wrong. I guess it's on par with his character so far. He should explain these things earlier on. Questionable actions aside, Ripley actually doesn't know that the wedding is to be held next week, and yeah, that's on her. Zeronis implores of her that she just rests, eat well, and focuses on this for the week with the help of others while her body and complexion gets better, while giving her a kiss and telling her that in return, she can walk around the mansion more. The weeks go by, and both the wedding preparations and the business go smoothly. Indeed, Ripley did not need to be there for everything. She could rely on Etoile to handle the business for a week. Things are actually going well, and Ripley is really happy. Suddenly, a maid which we have never seen before appears late at night, telling her the Duke wishes to see her in the back gardens. Suspicious. As trusting as ever, Ripley follows the nervous-looking maid through the back gate, where instead of finding the Duke, she is taken away by a mysterious pair of hands. Ripley then wakes up in some abandoned cabin, two men in front of her, one of them telling her this place will be her grave. Not moments later, the true villain behind the plot shows up, and you might have guessed it, it's Rose. Now, this girl has gone absolutely bananas over the last few weeks. Hearing how things have been going well for Ripley and knowing Zeronis hates her for pushing her off the boat, she literally went insane. Since she was living in hell, she decided to bring Ripley along with her and make her suffer a painful death, leaving the spot of Zeronis' bride open for her. I don't know what makes her look crazier, this whole plan or the fact that she thinks Zeronis would actually pick her if Ripley were gone. Ripley says that she won't be able to get away with this. Her Duke will find her, but Rose has been very meticulous in her planning. No one saw Ripley disappearing, and all the people Rose hired had nothing to do with her family, so she's sure no one will be able to trace this back to her. Ripley still believes Zeronis will come for her, but Rose bets on herself being able to get away with it first. Yeah, completely bananas and all the other fruits. That's what Rose is. The next morning arrives, and Rose comes bearing news that Zeronis has discovered she's missing, and is going everywhere with her maid trying to find her. Ripley is worried for Sylvia since she was in charge of keeping her in the mansion. She fears Zeronis might blame her for this. She asks Rose what she wants from her, and Rose, being the psycho that she's become, says she only wants to see her draw her last breath. Changing her strategy, Ripley pleads for Rose to let her write a letter, not asking for help, just something that will save Sylvia. She literally has to bow down to her, telling her she'll write that she escaped on her own free will because she doesn't like the Duke who locked her up in her room, that she met another man and fell in love and ran away. While she says this, she can't help thinking about how much she loves Zeronis and all he does for her, and upon knowing she won't see him again, tears fall down her eyes. Rose likes this and lets her write the letter, which will somehow be delivered to the Duke. Ripley can't help but blame herself for interfering with the story and depriving everyone of their happy ending so that she can have her own. But then Zeronis' words start ringing in her ears. You didn't do anything wrong. Be confident, my heroine. These words give Ripley the courage she needed. The male lead chose her to be the female lead. This happy ending will come true. She gets up and rummages through the hay on the floor, trying to find something that will help her. Luckily, she finds what appears to be a broken, sharp object and uses that to cut the ropes that bind her hands together. Next thing, she tells the man at the door she has to go to the bathroom. Insisting that she can't go in the cabin, the man concedes and lets her out into the woods, where she distracts him and kicks him in the groin. Take that, you shady man! Way to go, Ripley! Ripley runs away as fast as she can, but she is completely lost. Still, she decides that getting as far away as possible from that place is the best choice, so she continues running. She can't get very far, though. After all, she's dehydrated, hasn't eaten in days, and hasn't been able to move much. She tries her best, but the shady man has already caught up with her and starts aiming and throwing rocks at her with such strength that she knows that if she were hit in the head, it would be the end. She keeps on running, dodging the rocks, and tries going through bushes and trees, but eventually she is hit on the shoulder. Ripley falls to the ground, and the shady man stands in front of her now, ready to strike and end her. She thinks about Zeronis, wishing to see him one more time as the man draws his blade higher. Closing her eyes, she awaits the end, but instead, she hears a thud as something falls in front of her. The man has been hit by an arrow and is lying at her feet. Who did this? Her name can be heard through the woods, and not a moment later, Zeronis shows up on a white horse, flustered and desperate as he looks for his bride. At last, Ripley is saved! Right? Please tell me we're done with Rose now and Ripley and Zeronis will finally get married? So guys, what do you think of this story so far? Zeronis embraces Ripley, both of them tearing up as he asks how she is. She tells him she was terrified, but is grateful he arrived on time. Though not soon enough to prevent such a traumatic event from happening to her. She confides that whenever she's afraid, she thinks of him. He responds that the feeling is mutual. Upon their return, Ripley's parents are visibly worried, her father most of all. After her mother tells her father to back off, she instructs Ripley to see the doctor immediately. As soon as they arrive home, Sylvia bursts into tears at the sight of Ripley, completely ignoring Zeronis. Between sobs, she expresses how frightened she was when Ripley suddenly vanished, and now that she's back, how awful she looks. Well, she's been through a lot. Ripley comforts the crying Sylvia until she calms down. Sylvia wonders aloud how terrible those people must be, saying how much weight Ripley has lost in just a few days, questioning whether they even fed her at all. When Ripley says she's hungry, Sylvia quickly heads to the kitchen to get her some food. Once their lively reunion is over, Zeronis asks if they're both done, then remarks that everyone in Liverpool is so passionate, pointing out that Sylvia is loyal to Ripley. Ripley agrees, saying that Sylvia is like a sister to her. He goes on to say that when Ripley disappeared, he almost accused Sylvia. Hearing this, Sylvia is stunned and naturally asks why. He explains that Sylvia insisted Ripley would never leave on her own and that something must have gone wrong. He admits he didn't believe her at first, but when Sylvia showed him the empty closet where Ripley's wedding dress and shoes should have been, he realized Ripley would never have run away from the wedding. Obviously, Ripley was looking forward to it. Still, he knows they have to wait a little longer now that she's been hurt, and he's willing to wait, which flatters her. He thanks her for coming back safely, insisting that he didn't save her, she survived on her own. They share a kiss. His words encourage her, making her hope she'll ultimately escape her fears, since to him, she's his heroine. He then expresses his gratitude for giving him the privilege of being her groom. Ripley tells Rose to sit down, jesting that she looks like she's seen a ghost or perhaps expects to see one. As though Rose really has seen a ghost, she tries to utter something, but before she can, Ripley does her a favor and finishes what she's trying to say. If she's wondering how she's still alive and still having tea. She then thanks her, saying that if it wasn't for her writing a letter that night, she wouldn't be able to sit before her right now and might actually be a ghost instead. Rose assumes that Ripley tricked her in that letter using a secret code, to which Ripley denies, explaining that everything she said about not being in a condition to use code was true, but that wasn't the case for Zeronis. He didn't buy the content of the letter. To Zeronis, who acknowledges Ripley's love, it would be inconceivable for her to elope with another person. She then provokes Rose even more, stating that Zeronis trusts her so much. Well, even if he doesn't trust her much, he's still very meticulous and verifies documents, so naturally, he would verify the letter, which led him to believe they were written by someone else. He then conducted an investigation and easily found the culprit to be Rose. The question remains, why is Ripley alive and well and sipping tea? Defeated, Rose asks if Ripley summoned her just to poke fun at her, to which Ripley claims is only half true. She also denies that she's here to boast about herself and look down on her. Rather, Ripley wishes to put shame on her name, the Jenkinson family. Though they can't fully exterminate the family because of the trouble that would follow, Zeronis suggests that they should at least execute Rose. Upon hearing this, Rose exclaims, well, that was supposed to be the case, but fortunately, Ripley begged Zeronis to reconsider. But of course, she wouldn't be let go without punishment. She then tells Rose to pack her things since she's going to live the rest of her life there, reflecting on how she should appreciate the second life she acquired from Ripley. Of course, Ripley doesn't believe that, but unbeknownst to her, her father had already cast her out of the Jenkinson family. She then leaves, leaving a distressed Rose to ponder how her family just abandoned her. On the way back, Ripley and Sylvia wonder how a noble lady such as Rose learned such indecent language, Because after she left the room, Rose lashed out. But then again, Ripley regrets nothing, as Rose still deserves what she got. After everything that transpired, Ripley can finally and happily marry Zeronis, her favorite male lead. Surely, this is a sign that her life will sail smoothly, right? But upon her return, all of her hopes go into the dumpster as news comes that her business is doomed. Ripley thought that everything would go smoothly after overcoming the challenges they faced, that their love would conquer all and everything would be happy. But little did she know their magic ointments aren't selling. She then visits the store location and everything seems fine. But how come nothing is selling? How come no customers can be seen? Worried, a guilty Étoile apologizes, but Ripley reassures her, saying that she's actually doing a great job, as well as everyone else, and everything is fine. But the reality is, they have no sales. Ripley then thinks that perhaps she's been too laid back, as she relied on being a female lead, assuming her business would take off no matter what because that's how it usually goes in fiction. Then again, why doesn't she have this luck like they do? Well, perhaps her luck was all spent on Zeronis. Étoile then tells her that storage isn't the only cause for concern. The product expiration date is too. Well, it seems that Ripley has failed big time. At the mansion, Zeronis asks if Ripley needs help with her stock. She then asks him if he's going to buy some. Of course, she's kidding, but he continues, saying he'll buy 3,000 jars for the welfare of their servants. Of course, this shocks her. Does he even have that many servants? He denies it. Hearing this, Ripley becomes skeptical. How would he even use all of it? She says her products shouldn't be neglected, but he retorts that they're being neglected in her warehouse. She then discourages him from buying her products just to help her, but he insists because at this point, she's really going out of business. This makes her realize that his source could be Sylvia. Wanting to move on with the topic, Zeronis informs her about an invitation he received from the Emperor. Since their marriage has been postponed, the Emperor wishes to see Zeronis, and apparently the old man is also dying of morbid curiosity. He then tells her that she shouldn't be too nervous, but the problem lies with Prince Charmin. They both know nothing about him, plus he thinks Charmin is a fishy individual, completely different from the Emperor. He warns her to be careful around him. On the day of their meeting with the Emperor, Ripley notices someone unfamiliar and wonders if that person is Charmin. During their dinner, Ripley wonders if Zeronis is just overthinking about Charmin. Well, no matter, it's not like she's going to stumble upon Charmin after their meeting with the Emperor has concluded. Well, she jinxed herself. After their meeting, the maids inform Ripley that a prince will be visiting her. To her surprise, it's Charmin. She then wonders what would prompt someone as insignificant as him to visit someone as significant as her. She then wonders if the story is transforming and favoring her ever since she got into the novel. After her thoughts recede, shortly he tells her that he actually has a request, which is why he's here. She then overthinks, wondering if what she's thinking will be right. That he will profess his love. She then awkwardly attempts to reject him even before he finishes his statement. Well, to her embarrassment, he's actually just going to propose a business partnership. Fortunately, she's able to recover from that embarrassing fumble. In the following days, shortly after, Ripley explains to Étoile how her business started. It all began with a maid who hurt herself, which a soldier saw. He then spread it amongst the other soldiers, which eventually fell into the prince's ears. But Étoile thinks there's an issue, which Ripley can't deny. She worries that when she discusses this with the prince, he may retract the deal. That would be unfortunate because Charmin bought 200 boxes. This prompts Étoile to ponder. The following day, Ripley arrives at the venue of the meeting alongside Étoile. After a brief introduction, Étoile starts saying that she has concerns about the product's effectiveness since he already ordered 200 boxes. Apparently, he has already accounted for this, but Étoile is still confused about how this came to be. Meanwhile, Ripley is increasingly apprehensive about the tension between the two. Étoile then poses the triggering question, which reveals a glimpse of his true nature. Ripley is finally sensing that something is off as Charmin continues to explain what he's going to use the ointment for. Afterward, he decides to adjourn their meeting, telling them to enjoy the food prepared. On the way back, Étoile warns Ripley that they should be wary of Charmin, but Ripley still can't sense that he's someone bad. Knowing that he needs to order a lot of ointments, despite the fact that there won't be that many injured in the skirmish, Étoile suspects that Charmin is going to start a war. But Ripley is still in denial, thinking that he can't be that bad. It's just that he's rich, which is why he wants to buy so many. Well, Etoile already expressed everything and gave up, saying that she might just be overthinking. Upon her return, Sylvia informs her that the skirmishes on the border have worsened. And that's not all of it. Shortly after, Ripley rushes to Zeronis, shouting and asking if he's really going to war. He tells her to calm down, and by the looks of it, it seems to be true. She asks him a second time, and he responds that it's his responsibility as a duke. She then expresses how worried she is for him, which warms his heart. Ever since he was young, he never thought someone would actually worry about him. She ardently professes that she is. I mean, why wouldn't she? He soon acknowledges it. She then moves on to ask how dangerous it will be out there, to which he replies that he's not so sure, since war can easily be unpredictable and dangerous, and most of the time it requires luck. She tells him that he can take all the luck he needs from her since she no longer has use of it. He then tells her that if he comes back alive, she will certainly be his wife before sharing a bittersweet kiss. But no, she can't have that. She doesn't want to be his wife after he returns. She wants to be his wife right this instant. Ripley wishes to be Zeronis' woman as a token of his promise to return unharmed from the war. But he disagrees because to him, she is already his. Sylvia finishes dressing Ripley for her wedding, commenting on how pretty she looks, though it's a shame she won't have any guests. She then suggests that perhaps they should just wait until Zeronis returns safely, to which Ripley exclaims that he will come back early and they'll have another ceremony then. Sylvia apologizes, but Ripley knows she's just worried. Everyone knows that nothing is guaranteed in war. Still, Ripley is confident, believing that since Zeronis is the protagonist, he will surely survive. As Ripley solemnly approaches him, he grabs her hand. She giggles, expressing that she had prepared for an actual wedding, yet here she is like this. She doesn't hate it. In fact, she likes it because she can do as she pleases. Shortly after, Sylvia hands Ripley a box. Ripley opens it and presents it to Zeronis. A gift. A ring. She had planned to buy him something more expensive, but since her business didn't take off, she settled for something less instead. He then jests that her business really didn't take off, but yes, he's fine with it. Actually, he's more than fine. Little things like this make him fall for her even more. Zeronis puts on the ring and proceeds to state his vows. Afterwards, they share a passionate first kiss as husband and wife. The next day, Ripley's parents, especially her father, are fuming about why she didn't inform them of her abrupt wedding. Of course, Ripley's father is going to be upset. He just wanted to see her in her wedding dress. Though he apologizes, he still can't get over the fact that Ripley is very selfish, to which her mother agrees. However, they quickly shift their mood once she tells them that there will be an official wedding once Zeronis arrives. She then informs them that she's planning to move in with Zeronis and will start by packing her things and moving them to his residence. Naturally, they are shocked by this news. They think she's probably rushing things. But she reassures them by saying she won't be a stranger in the residence because she is Duchess Ripley de Inglid. On the day of the Soldiers' March, Sylvia asks Ripley if she doesn't want to attend and see Zeronis off, to which Ripley replies that she's certain she doesn't want to go, plus she has other things to do first. Ripley doesn't want to go because she can't guarantee that she won't beg Zeronis to stay. She then tells Sylvia to go back to work and reassures her that she's going to be fine. As she continues to work, she subconsciously thinks of absurd things, such as sneaking into the war by hiding inside one of the 200 boxes Charmin ordered. Upon this realization, she tells herself to focus, but she still finds herself thinking about him. Shortly after, she rushes outside the office, telling Sylvia that she's going to head to Zeronis. She has to see him. She has to express how much she loves him because she doesn't want to regret it afterward. But before she can run far, Sylvia suggests that she ride the carriage instead. At the march, Ripley frantically searches for Zeronis, and upon seeing him, she notices his eyes wide open as if in disbelief. And of course he is! They had already said their goodbyes! She then hands him her ribbon as though telling him to hold on to it and return it to her after the war. Upon her return, Etoile cries at how touching her story is, moved by the extent of Ripley's love for Zeronis and everything she has done for him. She cries too, but Wright offers to wipe her tears. And of course, since Ripley is just in front of them, she's dumbfounded seeing this. Ripley teases the two, observing how their relationship has developed, but they frantically deny it. Moving on, she tells them that she's fine and that they don't have to worry about her. She'll continue to do her job in Zeronis' house until he returns. During her meeting with Charmin, he notices that her signature has changed, prompting him to ask if she's already married to Zeronis. She affirms this, explaining that they had to rush things and that the Emperor most likely already knows. She tells him that they're going to have an official wedding once Zeronis returns, which Charmin looks forward to attending with a devious smile. He then notices that she's donating all of the products for the war, which she explains is because she doesn't want to profit from it. The main reason, which she doesn't disclose, is that Zeronis is participating. Charmin warns her that this could pose a problem from an outsider's perspective, so he suggests that only half should be taken for free, while the rest is paid for. That way, it'll be a win-win for both parties. Despite Etoile and Zeronis' warnings about Charmin, she still can't find anything suspicious about him. He even got upset when she met with the prince without his knowledge. Not because he's suspicious, but because of the very nature of her meeting someone else. Well, it's not like she can turn down a prince, can she? Though he does still have a point. Zeronis tells her that until he declares to God that she's his bride, his irrational feelings won't become valid. This is all just her recollection, though it is short-lived when Sylvia arrives, informing her that a letter from Zeronis has arrived. Ripley gets emotional reading the letter from Zeronis, but the important thing that matters is that the war hasn't started and he's still safe. The following morning, Ripley's eyes are puffy, probably from crying, which Charmin notices. Paying this no heed, the two continue to discuss business, which makes her really happy since she's finally made a really good deal. Shortly after, Charmin offers to have dinner with her, but she declines the offer. Instead, he offers tea, but she declines again. He then offers to at least escort her to her coach. Though she's really uncomfortable with his constant offers, she feels it would be rude to continue refusing, especially since he's a prince. She ends up accepting the offer. On the way, he starts asking personal questions and continues for a while, which she notices. She then confronts him. Just as he's about to admit his intentions, thinking he's been caught red-handed, she is stunned to realize that she has completely misunderstood the situation. She believes he's trying to get the recipe for her product. Afterward, facing multiple rejections, he tells her that apparently Zeronis entrusted her to him, which Ripley doesn't find hard to believe. After all, Zeronis is a sweet man even if he dislikes Charmin. With every delicate stroke of the pen, Ripley expresses her feelings as she writes a letter to Zeronis. Soon after, she asks Sylvia to deliver it to the post office, but she cries and suggests that Sylvia go to her favorite hobby instead to cheer her up: Isla, the witch's crystal ball. Using the money Sylvia saved up, she treats Ripley to the witch as a gift for always treating her like a sister. Though Ripley wants to refuse, she can't help but accept the gesture. She expresses her thanks, then quickly enters the building. Upon entering, Isla runs through the same intro she did last time. She then uses the crystal ball, guessing what she feels inside, but Ripley doesn't buy it, knowing that Isla probably just heard rumors going around. Though Ripley thinks Isla is still a fraud, she just wants to hear that Zeronis will return safely, which Isla confirms. But Isla also adds more. Something about the end. Ripley thinks this is perhaps just a fib from the witch. Isla tells her it's something more, perhaps pertaining to the end of the world. After that, Isla tries to sell her something which Ripley already anticipated. On the way back, they see that their establishment has a long queue, meaning business is booming. Overjoyed, Ripley can't listen to Etoile's concerns. Of course, she's happy their business is finally taking off. Shortly after, Charmin arrives, and Ripley immediately thanks him. Seeing that his business with her is the reason for this success, he takes the chance to ask her for dinner. Ripley asks Etoile if she'll be available if they end up having dinner. Unfortunately, Etoile declines because she has prior engagements. However, after careful consideration of Charmin's feelings, she agrees. Later, as they enter the venue, Ripley can't help but notice and feel pressured by the gazes and gossip that arise upon seeing her with Charmin. During dinner, Charmin compliments Ripley on the success of her business, commenting on her skills as an entrepreneur. It isn't until later in the conversation that Ripley's thoughts wander and she begins to wonder how Zeronis is doing right now, making her appetite subside. Shortly after, Charmin gets her attention, stating that if she continues producing her products, he plans to purchase more in the future. Concerned, she abruptly stands up and worriedly asks if these additional orders are because the war is going to last longer than anticipated. Seeing her visible frustration, he tells her to calm down. She promptly apologizes for getting a little tense. He then offers her a toast, saying that although he wants to comfort her, he cannot guarantee anything because war is unpredictable. After dinner, Ripley ends up having to carry and take Charmin home because he's already drunk. After taking him home, Ripley struggles with body aches and swears she will never have dinner with Charmin again. Shortly after, Charmin's sister greets her, asking why she brought her brother home. Though Ripley badly wants to mention that her brother was being irresponsible, she holds back, and then asks what brings the princess here, and based on her reaction, it seems that the princess came to see her after all. Even after learning that Ripley is leaving so soon, the princess is visibly saddened, but she seems to be plotting something. Ripley recalls Zeronis saying that the princess is an absurdly spoiled brat, and it turns out to be true. Afraid of the repercussions of making the child cry, Ripley decides to play with her until she gets tired. As the evening concludes, Ripley sleeps beside the princess, wondering if their child would look like her. Blonde hair and blue eyes. Hearing this, the princess asks a bombshell of a question. Does Ripley know how to make a baby? Ripley is confused about how to explain to the princess how babies are made, so she explains it by referencing a stork. Well, that didn't work, since the princess doesn't believe her. She simply explains that babies suddenly appear on bridges, which the princess doesn't believe either. Then the princess boasts, saying that Ripley doesn't know anything and that she's actually the one who knows. But Ripley becomes worried because the princess is still young and already knows where babies come from. As the princess explains, Ripley interrupts her, relieved that she doesn't know anything after all. The princess then asks her how the Duke's hands felt, to which Ripley explains that it's the most wonderful thing ever. Just as Ripley continues to explain why it's the most amazing thing ever, she sees the princess soundly sleeping and tells her as she sleeps that she'll eventually know how it feels to hold the hands of someone she finds dear. The following day, Ripley is exhausted, even after spending the night with Charmin and the princess. This burdens her, making her realize that they're not so different after all. Upon arrival at their residences, Ripley is greeted by gossip and cold gazes, making her wonder what's happening. Shortly after, Etoile shows up, telling her that she wishes to discuss something in private about this matter. Apparently, people are spreading rumors that Ripley is having an affair with Charmin. Confused, she tries to retrace her actions and ends up realizing that she spent the night at the palace. But Sylvia and Etoile reassure her that they know she wouldn't do anything like the rumors say. She then promptly visits the palace to discuss this with Charmin. She wants him to put a stop to these rumors since they're all baseless. But to her stunning surprise, he doesn't seem to want to stop them. In disbelief at what Ripley heard, she reiterates that once Charmin announces he doesn't like her, the rumors will surely subside. But again, to her surprise, he then admits that he likes her, prolonging her growing confusion. Upon slowly realizing the effects of her charm, she gracefully rejects him, but is met with a dumbfounding gaze from Charmin, wondering if he truly thought she'd just say yes to him. Not wanting to hear another word from him, she stops him, proclaiming her name as Duchess Ripley de England and stating that shall not change. Later, as Ripley is eating her meal, she notices that the meal she's having is not the same. She then asks Sylvia if the atmosphere around the residence has been well, to which Sylvia honestly responds that the servants think she's a traitor. It's only natural that the servants of the most esteemed man in the England clan expect him to marry someone who is noble, graceful, and loyal, but instead, she turns out to be a traitor. Or at least that's what they perceive. Yeah, they absolutely hate her guts now. They never liked her in the first place because of her status, but even more so now because of the rumors. She then orders Sylvia to gather all the servants. Later, before her stand all the servants. She decides to clear the rumors once and for all, but of course this isn't going to be easy as the servants don't seem to be here willingly. But Ripley continues, stating that all rumors are baseless. It's not true. And the reason for this is her overwhelming love for the Duke, which is why they fell in love in the first place. She then continues to state her reasons as to why she's never going to betray the Duke, because he's the most wonderful man to ever exist. Of course, upon hearing this, the room falls silent. How can anyone refute that claim? Despite the servant's silence, Ripley continues, stating her number 2 reason why she would never betray Zeronis, because he loves her so much that he agreed to marry her too abruptly, meaning the most handsome man loves her greatly. So why on earth would she fall in love with someone who isn't even as impressive as Zeronis? He's not even good-looking, she reiterates. Of course, the audience is still left dumbfounded, especially Sylvia, who has to watch this embarrassing scene unfold. Ripley continues, saying that Zeronis loves her no matter what happens, and the same goes for her. He is someone she cherishes and plans to cherish for the entirety of her life. As she concludes, she pleads with everyone to help her protect the place until his return. She doesn't want him to come home with those hurtful rumors. She admits that she did make a mistake by failing to consider that such rumors would spread, but still, she wants to create an environment where the Duke will come home to love and care. So again, she asks them to trust her wholeheartedly, because all she wants is what's best for him and his residents. After her speech, though, she has doubts about whether she conveyed her message properly. A kid raises his hand, suggesting that if she plants daisies, something Zeronis loves, then surely he'll be happy upon his return. Following that, many of the servants feel comfortable sharing their concerns about how to make the residence an even happier place for the Duke when he returns. The overwhelming number of raised hands signifies that her effort today is not in vain. Elsewhere, Zeronis is enjoying reading the letter he received from Ripley, but shortly someone enters his shelter asking for a consultation. According to the soldier, things are not going as expected, prompting Zeronis to ponder that having Charmin directing this war was suspicious enough. They then hear a loud scream, shouting that there's an ambush. He quickly orders the soldier away, and after he leaves, a surprise ambush falls upon him. Later that day, Ripley receives a ton of documents about the proposed renovations from the servants. Shortly after, she senses an eerie wind, wondering if Zeronis also feels it. She feels apprehensive about this. Suddenly, an announcement arrives that the Imperial Army has failed. Apparently, Zeronis disappeared after the ambush. They inform her that when a commander dies, their head will be decapitated and displayed. Ripley is angered that the Imperial Army just gave up simply because they found his ribbon lying around. It also seems that they don't have any plans to meticulously find him either. Because of this, she firmly believes, or at least hopes, that Zeronis is alive. Later, Ripley is swiftly packing her things, but Sylvia tells her to stop, to which she doesn't want to comply because who would be calm in this situation? Sylvia then asks her where she even plans on going. Of course, she plans on going after Zeronis. Sylvia continues to stop her, saying that the Imperial soldiers are putting the search on hold, not stopping it permanently. But Ripley still doesn't want this. She wants them to find Zeronis now, or else she'll go herself. After a while of back and forth, Ripley's bag tears open, revealing the useless thing she plans to bring. Sylvia gets upset and asks what even her plan is once she gets there. Ripley cries in defeat. Of course she's going to cry. Who knows what is happening to Zeronis at this moment? Sylvia then embraces her, consoling her and reassuring her that he will be fine. For now, he needs to become stronger. But still, Ripley insists on being near the border. Shortly after, Charmin arrives, much to Ripley's confusion. He states that he heard the news. She then wonders if he has always been this creepy. She continues, saying she doesn't believe he's dead just because of a mere blood-stained ribbon. But Charmin creepily caresses her in an attempt to comfort her. Suddenly, a resounding slap echoes throughout the mansion. Ripley slaps Charmin, stating firmly that Zeronis is not yet dead. She reiterates that she does not believe he is dead, and if anyone states otherwise, she is ready to fight. Charmin quickly apologizes and asks if her hand is okay, prompting Ripley to apologize as well. He then quickly rings a bell, asking the servant if Ripley has eaten, to which they say no. He then announces that he'll be staying overnight, probably in order to look after Ripley, making her very upset at this absurd turn of events. He then menacingly and quite condescendingly tells her that she doesn't have any right to decline after slapping a prince. Intimidated by his words, she decides to accede to his request. As the evening concludes, Ripley stares at the ceiling, pondering Zeronis' safety and hoping that he'll return eventually because he promised that he would. She can't sleep. She wonders if the Imperial House isn't going to search for him. Then she will see if Zeronis' residence still has spare soldiers, and if not, she will hire mercenaries and have a search party for herself. She decides to take a walk when suddenly a door opens. Thinking it's Sylvia, it's Charmin. Sensing that there's something off, Ripley slowly retreats, but he is creepily approaching her slowly. He then continues and strangely expresses that they should get married. Of course, Ripley finds this absurd. What is he saying? She then expresses her confusion, to which he responds that he will soothe her, breaking her, and insists that it will be his responsibility to protect her. But she slaps his hand, reiterating once again that she firmly believes Zeronis is alive. Charmin finally reveals his true nature. He gets upset and quickly changes his demeanor. Ripley doesn't know what to make of this, But before she sees it coming, Charmin grabs her face and tells her that he's not asking her to marry him. He's actually telling her that that's what's going to happen. Ripley tries to remove Charmin's hand from her face, but his grip is too strong. Finally, he reveals himself, threatening her that if she continues to squirm, he will have no choice but to strangle her. She asks him what his goal is, to which he admits that he plans to become the sole Duke of the Empire. He explains that since the Duke, referring to Zeronis, unexpectedly died in battle and has no heir, Ripley will naturally succeed him. But if she remarries Charmin, he'll become the sole Duke. It's quite a troublesome process, but the Emperor and his brothers would no doubt favor him over Zeronis becoming Duke. Even if things don't go his way, his influence is enough to overturn that. But Ripley thinks otherwise. Hearing this, Charmin tells her that his plan has been a success so far. Even driving Zeronis to battle was his plan all along. Everything, including the rumors, is going according to his plan. Still, she is determined to fight back. He then rubs it in her face that her husband is dead, and that he was the one who killed him mercilessly. He tells her that since she doesn't seem to be cooperating, he will instead knock her out and send the maids to see them together in the chamber. Frankly, he looks forward to how notorious she will become after that. But Ripley is a firm believer that a hero such as Zeronis will never die like that, so she agrees to cooperate with Charmin, but in exchange, she tells him to drop dead. Well, she kicks him and promptly stands on the balcony ledge, telling him that she would rather die as Zeronis' wife than go where Charmin wishes. Once again, she tells him to drop dead before jumping. Fortunately, Zeronis arrives and catches her in time. Ripley embraces Zeronis tightly, no questions asked. She's just so happy to see and hug him again. Meanwhile, he is very happy to have caught her, as he saw her fall. Charmin is panting, rushing to get out of the mansion. But before he even gets close to the exit, he hears Zeronis' voice in disbelief because he thought Charmin was dead. Apparently, the assassin he sent made sure that Zeronis would be dead. Well, to Charmin's surprise, that assassin was already an acquaintance of Zeronis and is now working under him. But since he couldn't reveal that yet, Zeronis told the assassin that he did his job and that Zeronis pretended to be dead. The ambush didn't even work, as Zeronis' men were fully prepared for it. Of course, he was at the front leading them. Charmin is left standing there, dumbfounded by this revelation. He claims that his design was flawless as he looks at Ripley, a bulb of light flashing above his head. He tells Zeronis that she has been unfaithful while he was away. He then tries to drag Ripley along with him, convincing Zeronis that an affair has transpired between the two of them. He goes on and on about how all of this is a plot by Ripley and that she's the mastermind of it all, for all the residents of the manor to hear. But Zeronis claims that he's aware of the rumors going around. Charmin laughs and further provokes the Duke, stating that someone as influential and handsome as him still managed to marry someone as unfaithful and lustful as Ripley. Sylvia then tells him that he's wrong, and that she's been with Ripley all the time and everything he said has been false. But it's not only her. The chef also vouches for Ripley soon after, and all the residents start ganging up on Charmin, telling him there's no way Ripley would settle for someone like him. After hearing all of this, Zeronis threatens Charmin. After conspiring against him, what shall the appropriate punishment be? Before Charmin can even respond, Zeronis draws his sword and declares that he will cut ties with the imperial family. Zeronis swings his sword at Charmin, intimidating him, and then says that he's a lucky man because he's going to give him another chance. He states the following options: that Charmin can either run and cry to the Emperor or die by his hands. Trembling in fear, Charmin dashes away. After that's over, Zeronis finally faces Ripley face to face, who still can't believe that this is all real right now. Shortly after, he displays his ring in front of her, causing her tears to fall. Still thinking that this is a dream, Zeronis proposes a kiss as further proof that this isn't just a dream. The following morning, the two wake up in bed. She tells Zeronis that she has something to say, which he proudly guesses is that she's going to say that she misses him. Well, he's wrong. She then asks him why he had to play dead. He explains that it was necessary to achieve the best outcome, or else they wouldn't believe that his army lost when he's alive. She's left dumbfounded because what he said before totally contradicts what he says now. That war is about luck and not skill. She then informs him that she was very sad to the point that Sylvia got upset with her, but she still believed that he was alive. He tells her that she was always in his mind throughout the war, and upon return, he just sees her falling. Luckily, he caught her. After this, he pins her to the bed, asking her to explain everything she did with Charmin. While she admits doing all those things, she says she wouldn't have done them if she knew she was unhinged and didn't manipulate her. She then tells him how she rejected him up front and slaps him, prompting Zeronis to embrace her tightly, asking what she wants as a reward. To his surprise, she just wants food. Completely different from what he thought. Eating food in bed at the hotel with her husband beside her has been a long-standing dream of Ripley. Seeing that she's overjoyed, Zeronis asks if there is something else she likes. But still oblivious, Ripley tells him that she just wants some more food. Though disappointed, he tells her that even her ignorance is a charm. He then tells her that they need to wash up before breakfast and offers to wash her himself. Afterward, on the coach, they end up skipping breakfast and having lunch instead. She gazes at him, admiring his beauty, and just as their eyes meet, she quickly averts her eyes and follows it by asking where they're going. The carriage falls silent, and soon after, Zeronis tells her that they're going to the palace, prompting her to want to get out of the coach immediately. She doesn't want to go there of all places, especially after what happened. He then explains that he has to discuss the events that unfolded with the Emperor after all. Even if Charmin is an unhinged fool, he's still a prince, so they have to settle this formally. Upon their meeting, Ripley is obviously uncomfortable, just showcasing her business smile. But this is short-lived when the atmosphere shifts as Zeronis brings up Charmin. Even the Emperor can't help feeling flustered about the situation. The Emperor explains that Charmin is already locked up in his chamber, which makes Zeronis upset. Because, what do you mean chamber? He should be locked up in the basement! Assassinating him is one thing, but he can't forgive him for harassing his wife. The Emperor then decides to handsomely reward Zeronis for everything, but this is still not enough, as he wants to reward Ripley as well. So in line with that, the Emperor decides to grant Ripley the title of a knight. Of course, she can't believe what's happening right now. Later, Etoile is overjoyed that Ripley becomes the first female knight of the Empire. She praises Ripley, but Ripley just feels overwhelmed, not even knowing what to do. Still, Etoile insists that this is a great thing. Not wanting to prolong the topic, Ripley moves on and reveals why she invited them. Ripley introduces the topic of the royal ball, and to her expectations, Wright already knew of it, as he is the next Marquise. Miss Etoile, on the other hand, doesn't, and quite frankly doesn't pay the royal ball much attention. Ripley can't help but regard Etoile's nonchalant approach to the ball. Well, even aristocrats are rarely invited, but Ripley got her friend covered. She's about to pull out the invitation for Miss Etoile when Wright asks Etoile directly if she'd like to go with him. Stunned, Ripley lets Wright talk and comfort Etoile about not being worthy enough to join since she was a lowly orphan. He even describes her beauty and presence to be significant to him. Meanwhile, she also likens him to the sun, a man of blinding splendidness. Yes, they clearly have feelings for each other. Which is all well and good because, according to Ripley, who's enjoying the level of cringeness by the two, knows it's Lord Wright who possesses true love for Miss Etoile in the novel, even when she chooses someone else. Anyway, she prepares for the ball with Sylvia, who constantly teases her about her new knightly title and how long it is. Zeronis soon comes to get her, but is initially unmoved by her appearance, only commenting on how long her preparations took. Actually, he meant that she's as beautiful as always, to Ripley's relief. Then, the couple attends the royal ball. Although Ripley gets swarmed because of her new title, and because her red hair is a telltale sign even when in a masquerade ball. Wright saves her from the crowd, but soon leaves after Zeronis menacingly comes back out of jealousy. The Duke and Duchess Ingrid enjoy a dance for a bit, and afterwards, Zeronis asks Ripley to rest as he goes to pick up Wright and Miss Etoile. Just as Ripley notices the adorable Etoile, a mysterious robed figure appears, warning her of her imminent destruction. Amidst the murmurs of the crowd, it seems only Ripley can see or hear the mystery black-robed woman, evidenced by the fact when Etoile approached the stressed Ripley, who tried to warn her of the stranger, the woman was simply gone. The visibly shaken Ripley remembers her ominous voice, and fortunately, Zeronis is there to support her. Ripley laughs it off, saying she must have been mistaken. She offers to fix them drinks, both to dispel her friend's worries and the gathering crowd. Ripley just doesn't want them to worry when she herself isn't sure of the matter yet. Meanwhile, Charmin is being erratic in his prison cell. He's initially informed that the Emperor has given him something out of concern for his situation, but actually, he's tasked to carve ointment jars, which he knows are Ripley's. Charmin does get docile when asking whether his cooperation would ensure his release. The man in charge remembers Zeronis' words from his visit during the ball, lest any misfortune befall Charmin, implying something menacingly, he should stay within the Imperial family's care. So he says Charmin should ask that when he's finished, though he's doubtful of his release. Meanwhile, Sylvia notices Ripley studying the calendar intently. It seems she and Zeronis had an argument about when the wedding should be, and Zeronis' feathers got ruffled when Ripley rejected his notion of an as-soon-as-possible wedding. So Ripley tries to find a perfect date. Sylvia informs her that the date she's considering is too close to her birthday, which is coincidentally close to our heroine's, the one possessing Ripley, true birthday. So, in a bid to learn Ripley's true birthday, she asks Sylvia about when the ideal wedding date should be with a 2 weeks gap between the wedding and her birthday. Sylvia suggests the 30th, as Ripley's birthday is the 24th, which surprises the heroine because she and Ripley coincidentally share a birthday. But is it really just an odd coincidence? Ripley stares blankly on a menu, without much thought. It took the waitress calling her 3 times to snap her out of it. It seems Ripley is out for tea with Miss Etoile. Ripley secretly chides herself to forget thinking about the coincidental birthday dates, as it's something she can't investigate now anyway. Regarding their meeting, it seems that Ripley's and Baron Haley's magic ointment has been a booming business. The two give each other credit, with Etoile saying the success is because of Ripley, and the latter saying is because of Baron Haley's secret ointment recipe. Even Ripley's dad likes the ointment so much. So Ripley asks Miss Etoile for her opinion on launching Magic Ointment 2.0, which she correctly assumes is an upgraded version of their current product. Granted, their product is already perfect, so the upgrade is a larger jar. This is to accommodate public organizations buying their product, such as the Army, and even the Imperial Palace, where the Emperor has apparently taken a liking to the product, though Ripley suspects Zeronis' persuasion. The two end their meeting with Ripley hinting at their package design using a boy with blonde hair and blue eyes. Later on, Zeronis vehemently rejects Ripley's proposed wedding date, as he's still intent on having it as soon as possible. Ripley reminds him of the catering, the invitations, and the like, which takes time, but the Duke has his reasons as well. So Ripley tells him of her birthday, which she marked with a star on the calendar. She also says she'll draw hearts on anniversaries and stars on birthdays from now on, so they should plan the dates accordingly. She kisses Zeronis when he doesn't understand. Ripley further explains that as a couple, they should plan the dates so they can celebrate each other accordingly. But with a straight face, Zeronis says he already celebrates each and every day with her just as special, and with the wedding, it'll be even more so. Even Ripley's surprised that Zeronis is constantly improving flirting. She asks him when his birthday is, but Zeronis doesn't remember. Ripley realizes he's been left alone as a child, really not having a chance to celebrate it. So she hugs him fiercely, promising to celebrate his birthday with him from now on. Zeronis doesn't care much about his birthday, but pulling closer on Ripley's hug, he expresses being excited at Ripley's promise to draw a star for his birthday on the calendar too. Meanwhile, Sylvia finds a red-haired doll. Ripley's reaction to the doll found by Sylvia is not a good one. In fact, she's sure it's the same one she had in her original world. That's why she's so frantic about learning where it came from and why it exists here. The doll was Ripley's favorite, apparently, but our heroine's sure it's her own, completely identical down to the red cloth patch her mother stitched on the doll's back. Sylvia explains that she didn't buy it, but rather Ripley had gotten it from Isla the Witch. Scammed might be the right word for it. Regardless, it's too much of a coincidence, so Ripley keeps asking about it. Sylvia shares that Ripley bought the doll only this year, and that she had acted strangely that morning. Before, Ripley had always talked of living a normal life, having kids and passing away peacefully at 82. But that morning, she suddenly talked about how tedious her life was, and then she went to Isla to buy that doll. Sylvia also vaguely remembers Ripley saying something, but apparently had forgotten it, and assures Ripley if she did, then it isn't important. Not that Ripley agrees. Anyway, Ripley decides to solve the mystery on her own and tries to head to Isla. But Sylvia asks if she's done writing the wedding invitations and is shocked to discover there are only 3. Sylvia tries to think of any more friends Ripley can invite, even suggesting Miss Rose upon Ripley's query as to who's her close friend from before. However, Ripley remembers the doll as the more pressing matter and excuses herself while declaring the relatives and friends she invited are enough for her. Despite being determined to see Isla, Ripley still hesitates upon entering her shop. She does so regardless, and there, Isla announces the Duchess's expected return. Isla asks what Ripley's visit is about, but she says she already knows the reason. And before, Ripley might have dismissed her, but seeing the doll, she now thinks otherwise. However, Isla then proceeds to guess wrong about Ripley's sole reason for visiting, and gets flustered each and every time she guesses wrong. From Ripley's marriage to her lack of friends, Isla gets it wrong. Wow, all that mystery and credibility just shot out the window. So Ripley asks about the doll, and even that Isla doesn't remember because Ripley suspects she sold a lot of items. Hence, Ripley describes it further, and Isla does remember, but she said the curse had indeed worked, as the doll she sold her was black-haired. Ripley is surprised the more Isla explains that doll. A voodoo one at that is supposedly cursed to change her fate and her life. Knowing what happened, Ripley knows it to be true, so she asks how to destroy the curse, and thinking of her life with Zeronis, asks how to protect it as well. Unfortunately, it's clear Isla doesn't know too much about the voodoo doll, much to Ripley's disappointment. Isla instead tries to sell a supposed magic cat that protects marriages since it knows happy endings, though she gives it for half off just to make a sale. This makes Ripley think about how this will all end. The book ends with the couple living happily ever after. But then what? Would the world she sees, this vivid world, be destroyed if she and Zeronis gets married? Anyway, she finally decides the magic cat is another useless trinket when Zeronis surprised her, asking why she seems deep in thought. She composes herself and asks him of the wedding preparations, which was going well. However, Ripley, dreading a possible end of the world, asks Zeronis if the wedding is necessary. His expression turns cold as he asks her what she meant. At first, Zeronis thinks Ripley is just picking a fight because of how peaceful it has been, but Ripley is contemplating telling him about the truth of this world, though she still decides against it. Ripley instead proposes a private wedding just for the two of them. But Zeronis would not have it. He wants to introduce Ripley as his wife to the world, his chosen female lead, and that's even at the expense of the world ending. He pulls Ripley close, and though she feels his love, she's still at a loss thinking about what to do, since their happy ending will surely signal the world's end. Ugh, the dilemma for Ripley! Afterwards, Ripley visits Miss Etoile, who's crying because Ripley's about to be married. Ripley then asks Etoile to receive her wedding bouquet as her closest best friend, cementing the relationship not just as a business partner, but also as trusted friends as well. Of course, the two then proceed to bawl their eyes out crying, and Wright, revealed to be in attendance as well but had been largely ignored, asks the two to stop crying to no avail. He then helps comfort and wipe Etoile's tears, and the two again express their unspoken love for each other. But it'll be unspoken not for long. All the while, Ripley gets her popcorn ready at the latest edition of Wright and Etoile's love story. Regarding Etoile getting Ripley's wedding bouquet, Wright says it's a tradition for her to get married as well. So he brings out the engagement ring that is a family heirloom and finally proposes to Etoile. Wright even dismisses Etoile's usual excuse of her being an orphan and not being worthy, saying no matter what she is, Miss Etoile is the one he'll choose, so she agrees to let him slip the ring on. Unfortunately, the ring doesn't fit, and Etoile takes this as a sign that she and Wright aren't meant to be together. Despite her sadness, she denies Wright's proposal. What's more puzzling is that, word for word, Ripley recognizes her dialogue as the one from the novel. Even Etoile and Wright's expressions were spot-on identical. What's going on? Seeing both Etoile and Wright acting and speaking just as the original novel had depicted, a wave of worry washes over Ripley, but then a wave of clarity. Yes, Etoile is denying Wright's love just as it's written, but in the novel, it's Zeronis who Etoile rejected. Just as when she first came to Ripley's body, it created changes, and though she tried to avoid it, she and Zeronis still fell in love. Through this, Ripley realizes that the story can change, and that now she's aware of it, she can change it herself. And first, she'll change these two lovers' dilemmas. Ripley starts by having Wright and Etoile's problem of the ring not fitting and realizing how dumb it is. Ripley simply slips the ring on Etoile's pinky. As for Etoile's reason that she isn't worthy, Ripley explains how their situation is like hers and Zeronis. At first, Ripley avoided and rejected Zeronis because she believes she isn't meant to be a duchess. But eventually she accepted, not to be a woman with title and responsibilities, but to be with her lover. She has Wright and Etoile stand and hold hands, and asks Etoile to consider nothing but her own heart. When Wright asks permission to marry Etoile again, this time she accepts. Yay! That's one problem down. Afterwards, Ripley visits the library with Sylvia, who initially thought the former was looking for books on how to become a proper duchess. Actually, Ripley is there to look for books about the world's end. She asks Sylvia to search one side of the library while she browses the other. Ripley does get a surprise visit from Zeronis, who thought his wife-to-be is there to read the book Fascinating Bed. Let's just say it's about nighttime activities. Ripley's excuse, to avoid his reaction on the end-of-the-world books as well, is that she's there for the How to Be a Duchess book, which he also finds easily. Zeronis also places the Fascinating Bed book on Ripley's pile to tease her. But really, he bids her not to push herself too hard, and Ripley, pleased with her lover, promises to do all she can, pertaining to stopping the end of their world. Sylvia returns with the books and leaves the two alone. She wonders about Ripley's interest on the subject, just as the voodoo doll is seen somewhere. Ripley is sprawled in bed, exhausted from her and Sylvia's search for clues on the end of the world from books, which now she's starting to question her methods. She's determined to change the story, but even she's not sure what the consequence of it will be. Will it be her wedding? If the end of the world comes from it, then she's becoming more unsure of what to do. Ripley's thoughts circle on that until she falls asleep. Then she finds herself in a dream where everything's dark and empty, except for a voice asking her to come. It doesn't say anything else except that, however. Even Ripley gets annoyed at how vague it is. Soon, she finds herself back in her room, but to her surprise, she can't move. She thinks she's paralyzed, but it's something else. She sees Zeronis, but he's clearly not himself. He seems sad and lost and is beside himself because apparently Ripley had left him. Of course, this hurts Ripley, who tries to reach out to him. Surprisingly, she could, but her touch shatters the image, revealing it to be another illusion. Finally, Ripley wakes up in the middle of the night, for real this time. What shook her the most is the image of Zeronis and the thought of him gone, which plunges Ripley into sadness once more. She thinks about it the entire evening, but when morning comes, her determination comes back. Although she concludes there's just nothing to be done right now, and the marriage has to be postponed. So Ripley decides to run away, even having planned far enough to have her clothes and Sylvia away on an errand. But just as she takes off her ring, determined to do everything to keep the world alive, while thinking of Zeronis, he himself walks in on Ripley. He sees her dressed and notices her ring missing, so of course he assumes that she's leaving him and assumes she has a change of heart. Oh no, what's about to happen? Ripley starts by saying her love hasn't changed, but just something has happened to warrant her actions. But since she doesn't explain, Zeronis assumes all these are excuses of someone who got caught. She proceeds to de-escalate, but Zeronis won't have it. He admits that Ripley is his one true nightmare. Before, he thought he conquered all when he became Duke. Then Ripley came into his life, torturing him, all because he loved someone again, and he can't bear the thought of losing her. Ripley also reveals her nightmares are that of Zeronis leaving, and this moment, she gains the courage to confess to Zeronis everything. But will this be enough? After telling Zeronis everything, focusing on the fact that they're in a fictional world and that their marriage could start the end of it, unfortunately, Zeronis finds it hard to believe Ripley. He instead believes she's lying and asks her to admit that she's leaving him because of how he is. Because such an innocent person can't be with a person as dark and bad as him, as tears fall in his eyes. To get him to believe, Ripley recounts Zeronis' trauma with seeing his mother killed while he's hiding, and of her blood pooling near the poor boy, which damaged him emotionally. Despite being shocked, and of Ripley professing her love, pleading for him to trust her, and her wish to not leave him alone, Zeronis still takes all of this as a lie and leaves the room, with Ripley on her knees. She stayed confined to her room after that, with Zeronis nowhere to be found. Someone enters her room in the morning, and Ripley, assuming it's Sylvia, asks her not to watch over her. Actually, it's Zeronis. He now believes Ripley, or rather, he doesn't care if it's a fictional world, or if Ripley's a different person. All he cares is that he loves her, and he will do everything, even relinquish his title to help and be there for Ripley. The two finally make up, as tears well on poor, sweet Ripley's eyes. Sylvia, worried that Ripley's been crying all morning, goes to check on her when she's met with a happy surprise. It's Zeronis who answers from Ripley's door, indicating they spent some time together. He orders Sylvia to prepare lunch instead for Ripley as he already took care of her breakfast. Really, Sylvia's just glad the two finally made up. Meanwhile, Zeronis goes back to Ripley's side, who's still sleepy now that she got a good rest. She also urges Zeronis to rest, but he says he's got a lot to do, especially now that he's going to help her save the world. He also promises not to make her cry again when tears of happiness appear on Ripley's eyes, making her remark that he had cried too during their argument. He stands while holding Ripley's hands, and the two promise to spend their lives together forever after solving the end-of-the-world problem. Finally, here's hoping they actually do it! Sylvia, ecstatic that the Duke and Duchess has made up, is surprised to see Ripley's tired condition. Apparently, Zeronis has been hard at work solving their problem. He had gathered soldiers and even posted bounties about rumors, legends, or sayings about the apocalypse. There's even a rumor that the Duke had finally figured out how to save the world. Of course, now Sylvia suspects Ripley has a mysterious religion obsessed with the apocalypse, which probably originated from Isla and has roped Zeronis on it. But Ripley assures her it's none of that. What's interesting is that Ripley asks for more rice than usual and something for her baggy eyes. Anyway, Ripley does also share about the voodoo doll to Zeronis, who remarks they look alike. He again posted bounties regarding its origin and info on the curse. So soon enough, Ripley and Sylvia are presented with mountains of submitted books and dolls. And not even all of them's useful. There's not even people around to help them sort through it, as Zeronis had ordered his workforce to prioritize gathering info on the apocalypse. Soon, Ripley gets called because there's a willing individual who claimed he or she got information on the doll. An excited Ripley goes to meet this person, but is shocked to see who's waiting for her. So guys, what do you think of this story so far? Please subscribe and turn on notifications for updates on this and all our other stories, so you can be the first to find out when they're out. Thank you so much for your support. See you in the next one!